fly so far, but I can't lose it.
Let's be innovative. Let's challenge a norm. Let's raise the bar. Let's be the elite.
To be the best, one must beat the best. Ovals, road courses, the streets of iconic cities, race after race, the top sim racing IndyCar stars will battle it out. In sim racing, it doesn't get any better than this. This is their battleground, for the checkered flag, for the glory, for the right to say they are the best. The cars and stars of the Lionheart IndyCar Series, presented by Butt Kicker, are ready to race.
there are some races that are bigger than championships. As Lionheart makes its pilgrimage to Speedway, Indiana, the drivers steel themselves for what lies ahead. A grueling 500-mile race to survive, all in the aim of crossing the yards of bricks first, a winner. The fact that double points are up for grabs won't be forgotten either, as drivers imagine what lies ahead. This is Indianapolis, and this is the HyperX Indianapolis 500. Hello everyone, and welcome back to RaceSpot TV and coverage of the 2022 Lionheart IndyCar Series. The Lionheart Racing Series is powered by HyperX, makers of premier gaming gear like the legendary ultra-comfortable Cloud line of gaming headsets. For more information on HyperX products, visit hyperx.com. My name is Arjuna Kankipati, alongside in the RaceSpot TV commentary booth is the one and only Justin Prince. And Justin, let's dive straight into our butt kicker pre-race show, because this is the race that drivers will have marked on their calendars as the one they want to win.
The chance to make history is on tonight. The chance to join an elusive club. The chance to be able to win in front and at one of the most prestigious racetracks in all of the globe. When it comes to Indianapolis Motor Speedway, no other feeling describes that of being able to kiss the bricks, to be able to climb the fence, and be able to drink that milk by winning a race here at this racetrack. Whether it's virtually or in the real world, it always is a staple to be able to win at when it comes to motorsports.
Here's a look at your next level racing schedule as we inch closer to the halfway marker of the season. Qualifying for today's race was a couple of days ago on Wednesday, so it was in effect back-to-back for the drivers after our first trip to the Suzuka International Circuit. Mosport, midway through July, will play host to the final race in the first half of the campaign. Let's talk to you about your butt kicker driver standings, and let's talk about the man that has snapped pole position up for today's HyperX Indianapolis 500. Phil Krause has been on a roll. What more can you say? 4 pole positions this year, 7 of the 9 victories, and he's in the best starting spot today, JP, to win at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway.
A great starting position, to say the very least. Momentum right on his side as well, with 7 victories in 9 top 5s and 10s on the season. The question is, can Philip Krause maintain his ability to build houses in HyperX victory lane, but this time here at the most prestigious of them all when it comes to this series?
Let's take a look at the HyperX team standings. When you look at 3 drivers from 2 teams represented inside of this top 10, it's no big surprise that it's 1-2, the private label Team Hype and Power Slide Adrenaline, 1 and 2 in the series standings. Madworks Motorsports have been impressive, so have the likes of Synergy Motorsports Silver. Let's see what they can do. But now we'll take a quick look at the butt kicker rookie standings, where again, because Phil Krause leads in the overall standings, he leads here as well. But watch for Caleb Bensi. Did not enjoy the best of runs at Suzuka, JP, but we still know what quality he has displayed in the first 9 races of 2022.
Not the greatest qualifying runs on Wednesday, but Van de Sande, I think you have to keep an eye on in particular, Arjuna. He was the quickest out of the individual laps. He crashed on lap 2. So starting at the back is second in the rookie standings and overall standings.
Let's take a look then at your Gomez Sim Industries Lionheart IndyCar Series details. It's season 10 in year 9 of the Lionheart Racing Series. We're campaigning the modern American open wheel racer, the Dallara IR18, with a custom fix setup and in-car tools built by RaceSpot's own Andrew Kinsella. Drivers are fighting for just over $10,000 in cash and prizes. And our winner here today wins so much on the line, including a Moser Racing direct drive wheelbase and steering wheel. It's the second of the Triple Crown, so double points are on the line. And this is a race which, like I said at the start, everybody will want to win. In year 10, it's time for Trip 10 to the Yard of Bricks. It's the closest ever finish in series history, took place here 10 years ago. Only twice has the winner started outside of the top 10. So many stats to watch here, but most significantly to me, JP, is the fact that pole position was converted into victory lane 12 months ago.
That being said, it's very difficult to do so just twice overall. Adam Blocker became the first 2-time champion since Jonathan Goch by doing so last time out. The question is, can he do it again? is the major thing. Remember that first race with the photo finish? That was the other time the pole sitter won back in Season 1.
What a race we've got in store for you here today. 200 laps, 500 miles for drivers to survive, to endure before they look to get to the end of this race in victory lane. And JP, I mean, we talk about strategies. Fuel saving always important here at Indy.
It's always important to make sure you execute your strategies. Window today about 28 to 29 laps in open traffic. Could go as long as 32 with the draft. Keep an eye on that as the night progresses.
And part of a race at Indianapolis is in the festivities. We've got our own here at RaceSpot TV. Let's start with today's national anthem. We are delighted to be back home again in Indiana.
Back home again in Indiana, and it seems that I can see the gleaming candlelight still burning bright through the sycamores for me. The new moon hay sends all its fragrance through the fields I used to roam. When I dream about the moonlight on the Wabash, how I long for my Indiana home.
The time for festivities is over. It's time to go racing at the Brickyard. Let's take you down through your butt kicker starting grid. Philip Kraus will take us to the green flag, another notch in a distinguished 2022. Alongside, though, is a fellow favorite in the form of Robert Malechka. Back in row 2, we'll see Adriano Pinheiro and Alexis Newsom both looking for some victories here today. Josh Chin and Henry Bennett both accomplished here at the Speedway. They'll start on row number 3. AJ Musselman and Andrew Kinsella 7th and 8th while completing the top 10. Matt Taylor and Brian Beard look for a good finish in this double points race. Matthias Kraus and Joe Branch 11th and 12th positions. Rolling from 13th will be Michael O'Brien, while on his outside will be the 35 Aero-X racing machine of Paul Jenkins, Chris Fowler and Jason Galvin right behind them. Caleb Bensi with some work to do from 17th, rolling off alongside of Stefan Larkamp, with Andrew Marquez and Ryan Otis completing the top 20. Bradley Sexton and Adam Frazier will be row 11, while rolling from 23rd will be the Candyman Dustin Wardlow, Lionel Kalisto alongside him. Matt Houston, Alex Guyon, 25th and 26th, with Rigney and Morgan behind. Tyler Graff starts in 29th in a special Indy 500 livery, with Mitchell Riggs in the Ascari Autosport car alongside him. Chris Lanini, Tony Schowen miss out on a top 30 start, with Luis Gonzalez, Nunez and Ron Hacker seeing lots of cars in front of them. Two drivers to watch out for: Alexander Van der Sat and Brian Carey, 35th, and 36th. Struggles continue for Barrett Rolfe in qualifying. He'll start in 37th. Jason Brophy has a lot of work to do with an end-of-line penalty along with Barrett Rolfe. They'll start at the very tail end of our field here today. The cars are already rolling, and JP, there's tension in the air. Remember what happened at the start of last year's race? Absolute chaos.
Last year, that was Brian Carey with troubles already through the short chute. Had the same struggles in qualifying, hence the back position. But three keys you have to win here. Execute your strategy. You need to be able to hit your fuel marks, hit your pit marks, hit your marks in general around the racetrack. 2, be able to have the right amount of luck and balance. Be able to time up your pit stop for the right moments. And of course, number 3, be able to keep it clean and be able to position yourself to be there for the end.
This is the type of race where you can only do so much. Indy will pick its winner. 500 miles on the cards. Competition, commitment, excitement. This is Lionheart, and this is the start of the HyperX Indianapolis 500. Phil Kraus picks up the throttle. We're racing at the Brickyard. Nice tidy start at the front of the field. Only change saw Henry Bennett be passed by Joshua Chin, who's looking to try and maybe get Alexis Newsom. But to the race lead goes Robert Malechka in the swap drafting that will be the story of the race. We're not going to get too excited about this, JP. We know back and forward at the front they'll go time and time again.
Especially with the amount of draft you get pulled in and the fact that there's crosswind down the straightaways. No headwind giving you an advantage here straightaway today. Philip Kraus doing exactly that with the swap back already, but nearly kissing the wall doing so this time for the short chute.
They're going to play it loose and fast with how close they get up to the wall. Drivers that will be most confident will be those that make up the most ground at this early juncture of the race. So they swap again for the race lead. Chris Fowler, Paul Jenkins, side by side on the run down into turn 3. O'Brien will give up a position to Joe Branch. With the tires fresh, we know that this is when the time to go is. Chris Fowler almost went down all the way to the inside of the track. He holds on, but gets passed by one.
What a save from Chris Fowler. That takes a lot of car control to do just right to make sure you don't slam into the inside wall. One more miscorrection, and Fowler might have had his race already done on lap number 2 there.
Matthias Kraus has lost 2 positions, now passed by Brian Beard as they funnel their way through turn 2 for just the 3rd time today. Back goes Malechka for the lead, and you see the choo-choo train that's forming. It is important to note, JP, we've got a big field here today.
Yeah, 38 starters for this year's running to the HyperX Indianapolis 500-mile race. A massive field, to say the very least, in this midst. And keep in mind, it can be difficult to go from the back to the front. You need to nail the strategy just right and have the right amount of luck to be able to charge your way through this crowd of cars today.
Strategy is what many of those further back will be looking to try and use to work their way forward. Fuel windows here anywhere from 30 to maybe 33 laps, depending on how much fuel saving is going on. At the front, it's still a back and forth fiesta, but this time it's a little bit closer. Piniero's lurking large. At the iRacing Indianapolis 500 earlier this year, we saw that the car third in line was struggling to work its way forward. We may be in for an interesting race here today, JP, because Piniero is keeping them honest.
You're right there for the taking to try and make some pounces for positions, just not there currently. Just that aero wash is a major impact if you want to try and run wheel to wheel around this racetrack here. And Pinheiro Just can't do that right now with the aero wash.
He has the fastest lap of the race so far, lap times in the just under 40-second bracket. A lot of the cars further back in the 41s, and at this juncture of the race, if you're someone like Jason Galvin who's up 5 positions, you begin to ride a little bit more. You begin to understand that you're in for a long old slog. Let's see how they'll come to you the deeper you get into one of these very taxing fuel runs. Let's grab a look at what happened then to Chris Fowler through the short shoot of turn 3 and 4, because this was close to bringing out a first caution of the race.
See it right here on corner exit. Just comes a little bit on up, trying to find that hole. Good save by Fowler, avoids wing damage in turn. Keeps it on going and keeps it steady. In the midst of some of the battling, here's a look in particular from Bensy, who has the perfect opportunity to showcase this. Right there he sees a hole. Was a little bit of area either way, but still was trying to go towards that hole, and that was opening.
As very close on the outside, Jason Galvin will get around Brian Beard. Those are some risky moves for this early in the race, but if you feel confident, you've got to go for them. Joe Branch looking to get past Brian Beard.
Beard struggling a little bit with these tensions building up, and remember, the more you fight, the more you lose ground to the cars in front, as it pulls each of those drivers back with the different lines. Dennis Kraus with the perfect viewpoint of this as well. They are nearly a second back now in the battle between Galvin and Taylor.
They single file it out though. They'll look to try and close on forward on that 42 car. Different lines being taken as well. Fix setup competition, but like I mentioned, in-car adjustments are available for the drivers. Front and rear anti-roll bars, as well as a weight jacket to balance the weight of the car just a little bit finer. You can go from plowing tight to super loose if you want. Finding the balance is always important when we talk about being proactive rather than being reactive, as already on lap 8 of this run, the fuel is burned off about a third of a tank, give or take, and you start feeling those balance changes. Do you remember when we talk about in-car tools as well, JP? We do have fuel maps which can help you save just a little bit of fuel.
Especially if it comes down to it. We've seen, for example, earlier this year in some various different leagues like majors, the race go fully green, and it came down to fuel mileage and cutting out an entire pit stop in that example. So that is a possibility with the fuel maps if it comes down to it, but you never know if you're going to have a caution-free caution race. You never know if you're going to have a 199, 200 lap green flag run. You have to be able to plan out for if it goes green from the get-go as the swap drops continue up at the front.
Henry Bennett will get past Alexis Newsom down the inside. Newsom's going to fight that one back. Very well held by Newsom, who will now power around the outside of turn 4 and keep Henry Bennett tight, and now watch him defend from Joshua Chin. But it's good to see Henry Bennett back in the field, of course, racing from the UK. It's fair to say that our regular weeknight races are not at the best of times for poor Henry Bennett, but he's back in the field today, qualified well, and is running up in the top 5.
Well, when it comes to Henry Bennett, keep in mind, whenever there's 500 miles at Indianapolis Motor Speedway, Henry Bennett is likely on that entry list. And Henry Bennett is usually likely in contention for the victory. And I wouldn't be surprised if Bennett's in contention for the victory if he plays his cards right here tonight. He's kept it pretty patient, trying to keep up with Newsom here amongst his top 5 train.
Now, in terms of these cars up front, who do they have to work with? Malechka will have Henry Bennett, Andrew Kinsella inside the top 10 to work with. Phil Krause's Joshua Chin, and then Adriano Pinheiro, as much with Alexis Newsom, independent in some regard. Newsom will have the assistance of AJ Musselman, one of his better qualifying performances of the season, up inside of the top 10, excuse me. So there may be some teamwork, some team alliances that you can build to try and work with one another. Some of the smaller teams, maybe Musselman, Newsom and Pinheiro, can work together to bully those around them.
Yeah, those different bits of work absolutely come into play, because wherever you are, you make your friends, but more so whenever you line up with your fellow technical alliance mates or those you planned out a strategy with, it makes it a bit easier to execute said strategy compared to, say, being with somebody who wants to try and save a massive amount of fuel. There's that major difference that comes into play in that balancing act. As a driver, you have to sort out of Do you want to be with your teammates? Do you want to be up at the front? Do you want to ride in the back? There's so much that you can factor on in when it comes to a race in general. But with Indianapolis, you never know how it could play out for your strategy, especially with where you can line up.
Two drivers that are trying not to ride too far back in line is Tony Schowen and Alexander Van der Sande as they run head-to-toe in the Powerslide Motorsports camp. Van der Sande's +8, Schowen's +6. Stalled out in about 26th for the time being, tucked up behind Matt Houston, Lionel Calisto, and Dustin Wardlow. It's still back and forth. They go at the front of the field, much more sedate and relaxing, some would think, further back in the pack. But we know, JP, that this is where dirty air plays such a big factor, and this is where you can get past. It's going to take some working, and Tony Schowen is working all over the rear wing of Matt Houston.
Takes trying to run different lines. You can't run the same line wheel to wheel. You have to also set it up to be able to build up the draft. Right now, Tony Schowen, a good example, is trying to save a little bit and use a little bit of that second and third line more so than try and go for a send on the inside with the ability for the driver to pinch on down. So you need to be able to try different marks, try and find clean air, search a little bit line-wise. The tough thing is making those second and third lines work for you fully to complete the pass.
This very much is an endurance race as well. Tony Schowen might lose out to Van der Sande. You saw him get a little bit loose on the exit of turn 2. But if we go green from here, we're looking at still about 2 hours and probably 10 minutes of racing to the end from here. You try staying focused for 800 perfect left-hand turns, all the while dialing in the car with the in-car tools, all the while watching for the dirty air in front of you. It's a delightfully fun challenge for those that get up for this sort of a race. Matt Taylor, Jason Galvin, AJ Musselman starting to drop backwards from Andrew Kinsella. Musselman sliding backwards after that great qualifying performance.
Musselman was one of the top qualifiers, in fact, in terms of those within the same tenth of a second bracket. Most of the drivers ran about, say, about the 42 flats, give or take, or so in the qualifying. Then the rest broke away into the nines. And that was the difference, says the near contact Taylor, as we take a look at the battle for 12.
Matt Taylor very, very close to being collected in something with AJ Musselman then as they work their way in towards turns 1 and 2. Again, a close moment that we survive. Fowler gets past Paul Jenkins for 16th position. There are definitely cars making moves. There they are, still side by side. Jenkins working the outside, and I think it's the third or fourth time so far in these opening 16 laps, Shapey, that we've seen a car try and go down low and maybe even lose out, unable to get moves done.
Hence why so many drivers are trying to make that outside groove work with the draft lock. That can come into play a bit. The tough thing is that top group doesn't have too much rubber built up yet amongst these drivers. It was a clean practice slate with some of the rubber built up from the practice, but they only have 30 minutes to build up the rubber before the green flag flew for tonight's race. So in other words, you have to make sure you have your tools set up and you have the comfortability and pace if you really want to make that outer groove work, and hope it works.
For many of the big teams, the few weeks after the month of May that they don't have to think about Indianapolis is bliss. They don't have to think about setups. They don't have to think about strategies. They can just enjoy some time. But this is the first race post-May, which all of these drivers will have been focused on Indy 4. It'll all build up, of course, as well to 2022 running of the open wheels 500-mile race. We talked about the progress that Tony Schowen and Alexander Van der Sande have made earlier. Let's talk about the relative lack of progress that Jason Brophy and Brian Carey have made up so far. Brophy wasn't too looking forward to the idea of starting all the way at the tail end of the field at a race here at Indianapolis, and well, the opening 18 laps are playing very much out in that train of thought as Barrett Rolfe looks low on Chris Lanini.
Barrett Rolfe just able to get that pass done for 32nd, and that's the price you pay for the EOL. Now you have to essentially try and claw your way from the very tail end of the pack on forward, and that is not an easy task to do. It's been done in the past in terms of winning mid-pack. The furthest starting position, Adam Blocker, 33rd position, in fact. But that is a rarity. A majority of your race winners in the history of this event have started in and around the top 10, except for Andrew Kinsella, 18th, and as mentioned, Blocker.
Two drivers have won this race multiple times. In today's field, only Andrew Kinsella can match that marker that we've seen the likes of Blocker hit in races past. I saw Benzi up another spot into 15th, officially working past Paul Jenkins. Of course, for these drivers, the second of these double points races, we know how important they are, but maybe more importantly, to some degree, JP, is the fact that this is at the end of the first half of the season, at which point two of those double point Triple Crown races will be done, and the next one bookends the season. They have to wait all the way to December for that next opportunity in double points. So for some of these drivers, they know that today is very much going to set up the rest of their championship hunt.
And a big sprint indeed, with a lot of different racetracks we've seen in the schedule earlier on. You have Michigan mixed in for 200 miles. You have Iowa coming up. You mentioned Canadian Tire Motorsport Park coming up as well. Barber's mixed into that. Twin Ring Motegi on the road course. There are so many different potential kinks in that schedule for you as a driver that you never know, or there are some potential unknowns is the major question mark. So it's the matter of, when you have double points, Arjuna, this early on in the campaign, you better score good points in it if you realistically want the championship.
Still going back and forward at the front of the field. Let's take the time to talk about, well, the drivers so far of 2022. Yes, we're not even halfway through it, but to some degree it feels academic that Phil Krause is waltzing his way to a championship win. 19 career starts, 16 of them inside of the top 10, and every time he's inside of the top 10, he's inside of the top 5. It took him one or two races to get that first victory under his belt, but since then has won more than half the races he's been entered into. Adds another pole here today, wants to get win 10 to ensure that his winning record stands at .50. There's not much else to say about this man, Phil Krause.
He's been able to build up a hype train full of victories, top 5s, top 10s into his trophy case, while building houses in HyperX Victory Lane at just about every circuit. What else is there really to say when it comes to the man who has an emoji named after him? Not really. Philip Krause.
Hey, if you're part of our Blame Club on YouTube, you can use emojis with commentators' face on them. Phil doesn't have that, although I'm sure he will very, very shortly. Crossing the line, lap 23 will be in the books as we work our way towards the first pit cycle of the race. And we try not to talk about it too much. We want to give our drivers the benefit of the doubt, but what we know, JP, is pitting here at Indy is no easy task. You're stripped of downforce. You're not using the brakes very much, so they're very cold. When you come onto pit lane, onto the pit limiter button, you've got to be very careful the car doesn't snap around on you. It's a high pit lane limit as well, so when you're coasting into your box and getting on the brake for the second time, it's equally easy to lose the balance of the car.
60 miles an hour, the speed limit here for today's race. And the tough thing is, especially if you're having several drivers pit at the same time, you want to build up some space to be able to fully charge into the pit lane and be able to get yourself to the yellow cone. But that chopping of the brakes, you don't want it to where you lock it up, lock up those firestalls, spin that car out, smack that car into the wall, and stack up the pit entry. You want to be able to keep it nice and smooth, while also making sure you don't leave too much time, if preferably any time, on the table in your entry all the way towards your pit lane entry box.
If you're only a couple seconds back from your race leader, you won't go a lap down, but the further back you are, the more in danger you are of going a lap down when you come to pit road. We talk all about this because there are drivers that we know and expect that if we went into a fuel mileage race, which technically it really isn't if it's a complete green flag run, but you look at someone like Alexis Newsom, always good on fuel. You look at someone like Joshua Chin, who's known as a prodigious fuel saver, but the man that I think we really should be watching for, if that's the case, is the man that's up to 25th position, now plus 10 from where he qualified. Alexander Van der Sant, after crashing in qualifying, is up to 25th.
Just taking his time right now, waiting to pick his spots. Right now riding behind Lionel Callisto in this case. And you're right on that strategy, because when it comes to today's briefing, it was talked about a 6 or 7 stopper without the draft factored into that, Arjuna. Meaning, if you elect to go on and push a little bit, you might get yourself to where you need that extra stop at the end of the race. It's within 5 laps of the checkered flag, mind you, if you go 28 to 29 laps. So that math of just a lap per run could be huge for how it adds up for the checkered flag.
And if you cast your mind back to the month of May here on iRacing, it was in the 13th running of the iRacing Indianapolis 500, looking like a fuel mileage race that Alexis Newsom, with help from her teammates at Team i5G, was on course to win. But then we had chaos. Cautions breed cautions. A one-lap shootout led to Christian Steele becoming yet another winner in the storied history of the iRacing Indianapolis 500-mile race. For the 2 cars at the front, they've been punching the hole in the air. They are not far away from being the first to grace us with a trip down pit lane. Will Malechka blink first? Will it be Phil Kraus in the pink and black number 19 private label Team Hype car that comes down on towards the pit lane? Stefan Larkamp has lost a bit of ground this time around. Passed by his teammate in the form of Andrew Marquez, and you can see the gap up to Ryan Otis. They are in danger of losing the draft.
And that draft extremely important for him to hold on for the main pack, because without the draft it could be about a couple tenths of a second difference in terms of lap times. Marquez, Larkamp, Frazier and company, though, have already lost it by more than a second plus. That's the tough thing. Pit window is coming. Malechka the third, indicating the pit window is open for him.
So will Kraus follow him in? Both cars peel off to the left, and they've got to be careful getting onto the anchors. Kraus locks up, but both cars sliding their way down onto the limiter line. Look like they get away clean with stop number 1. If you want to cast your mind back to May, I know Phil Kraus might not like me talking about this, but in a battle for the lead of the race, Phil Kraus came onto pit road. When he left it, he made a mistake and ended up crashed out of the race. One change for these drivers after that race in May is they cannot swing out as wide as they used to do in the short shoot between turns 1 and 2. So watch here as Phil Kraus has a much quicker time on pit lane to roll off a full second and a bit in front of Malechka. Kraus will be unable to swing out wide. You see that white line demarking the difference between the apron and the racetrack itself. Drivers are no longer allowed to cross. That means less sketchiness, but maybe losing a little bit more time on pit exit.
On top of things for Malechka the third, we've seen a little bit of a backup because he was too far to the right. So a major amount of lost time for the battle for the race lead. Kraus with the chance to pull off and away. Pinheiro and Newsom are now in the midst of a swap draft for what's now the race lead in turn.
Working lap 31, can they extend much further? We saw drivers take stints up to 34, 35, even 36 laps was possible for the bravest and the best of the fuel savers. But Newsom unable in the spot that she was in to really do too much fuel saving. Paul Jenkins will lead, and Andrew Marquez and Lionel Callisto down to pit road. It's getting increasingly busy as drivers try to execute on pit lane.
This was around the lap we talked about towards the edges of that pit window. Bensi projected to come in this time. Larkamp coming in this time. Jason Galvin this time. Kraus this time. Start lap 33. And this is with the major amount of saving within this draft, and that's the major thing. Pinheiro was riding, just waiting along that line. Newsom was waiting along that line. Guess what? They get the chance to push that window even more so comfortably inside the 6-stopper at the very least right now.
Couple of cars really pushing the limits on pit entry. We saw Henry Bennett emerging from stage right. Now, was that potential trouble for the 07 in today's race as he returns to Lionheart competition? Looks like all cars have gotten away cleanly, at least on pit entry. Can get dinged by the automatic race control on pit exit. So Bennett will drop and roll. 9, 10. What's happened to Henry Bennett?
Speeding. Bennett speeding. He's got a black.
So I was talking about victims. Henry Bennett is victim number 1 of the dangerous entry in towards pit lane. He'll be held there for an awfully long time. Newsom, Pinheiro, Chinkin, Saller, Beard, and company all coming down to pit road.
No other speeding penalty. Someone did hit the cone, but didn't pick up a penalty. Newsom with a bit of a slide up to the box, still able to make it rolling in nice and softly, though. The only driver in the field who has stretched it further, Barrett Rolfe, who is on his lonesome as the race leader. Off and away, Newsom jumping Pinheiro.
Well, Bennett will roll with the pack that he was in, albeit one full lap down. Henry Bennett needs the caution to come and save his chances of making it to HyperX victory lane. In terms of undercut or overcut, it's fairly stagnant between those two calls. Phil Kraus and Malechka, 4 laps already into their stint as they swap for the race lead.
Good recovery from Malechka the third after a rough pit entry into the box. But they are still in control of this pack. Pinheiro losing touch, though, a little bit to Newsom. In fact, just about has lost the draft after this window.
It is opened wide up since the green flag cycle of pit stops. Who executes the best is the one that will emerge on top. Newsom was about 3/10 quicker in total pit lane time as compared to Pinheiro, but that doesn't include the time to actually slow down and get back up to racing speed here. Let's take a look at what happened then with Henry Bennett as he tried to work his way onto pit lane. You're going to see on the brakes, locks up the tires and slides into a one-way trip into Payne City.
42 seconds back, the only driver a lap down. Not only over the speed limit by 10 miles per hour there, but also to the left of the pit cone. Not how Bennett wanted this to play out. But the swap drafting continues. 4-lap difference on them on the undercut. And this is where the chess match is really coming into play in terms of the fuel. With them, if they were to go 30, 30, 30, and so forth, break it down simply, you have the math where they go in for the last time for 20 laps to go. 5 laps, or 5 laps on extra stint, that puts Newsom and Pinheiro into the 1 less stop window for a 5 stop instead.
Let's jump around the field and see some of our featured onboard cameras for today's HyperX Indianapolis 500-mile race. Riding with the Graphics Esports onboard camera, it's Tyler Graff in the 98. Graphics Esports, world-class design from the real world to virtual.
Today, with the SimRace 24/7 onboard camera, it's Andrew Kinsella. Visit simrace247.com, where sim racing is for everyone.
And with your HyperX onboard camera, it's Aaron Morgan in the 24. Whatever you play, however you play, HyperX knows we're all gamers, and HyperX is always ready to game. A good look on board there as Aaron Morgan lost out to Matt Houston in that 66 machine, who made up some ground through the pit stop cycle. Another one of the cars trying the undercut strategy that might lead, if we go green from here to the end, to an additional pit stop compared to the rest of the field. 38 cars started, 38 cars still running, only 1 car 1 lap down. Henry Bennett with troubles on pit entry. We saw it on the RaceSpot TV replay. Overcommitted, ended up 1 lap down, 50 seconds stationary in the pit lane. And Justin Prince with the first cycle done, the first green flag pit stops under our belts as well. Who's looking in a comfortable spot when you cast your eye across the field?
Of course, we talk about the top 2, but I think Newsom and Pinheiro are in a decent spot as well, because especially Newsom, Alexis Newsom can just watch in the popcorn seat, munch away as the fuel gets saved, and boom, Newsom has a great opportunity to potentially go for a 1 less stop strategy to try and win the race in the long term. It's the matter of staying committed to it. That's the critical thing. Right now, Newsom's not in a position to go for the swap draft, obviously. You have to stay within the draft, though. Also liking what I'm seeing, though, from Jason Galvin, who's up 7 spots in this race. Also in a solid spot. Looking to battle it out with Matt Taylor still a little bit. Trying to catch back up to him, in fact, with AJ Musselman. Galvin, one of the bigger movers up towards the front. Biggest mover overall, still Van de Sande, who's still in the back in 19.
Van de Sande is working his way forward quickly. Only 12.5 odd seconds back from your race leader, even though he started at the very tail end of the field. And 4-lap qualifying always makes things a little bit more special. What makes it even more fascinating, even more of a pressure cooker environment, JP, is the fact that we had the HyperX race for the pole this past Wednesday. Drivers got one attempt, and that was it to go out there and qualify. Some rose to the pressure, some unfortunately stumbled and crumbled.
A few drivers did hit the wall, just a couple though. It was a pretty clean qualifying run. Most of the drivers separated amongst the top 25 by about a tenth or two on the average of the 4 laps. But the major thing too that popped up was the nerves, because some of them said it was the most intense qualifying session they'd ever taken part in. Others, they were saying, don't remind me of my apathy in terms of my focus, as in they were very calm. It was a difference of the spectrum, and the expectations were high for some. They lived up to the expectations in most cases that qualifying day.
Some are used to the pressure, some are not so used to the pressure. These one-time qualifying attempts are a staple, of course, of Indianapolis racing. And so it's good that we at least get them here today. Right on board with Jason Galvin down the back straightaway as he works his way in the draft of Muscleman and Matt Taylor in front of him. Brian Beard's comfortably tucked up behind. They're all settling into a rhythm now. Big windows and big gaps on track have been brought open by this pit stop cycle. You can see 4+ seconds to Kinsella up the road. We have 6 cars breaking away for the lead. Kinsella not completely out of it just yet.
As a matter of fact, Kinsella has reeled his way back into it. Was about 1 second back of Josh Chin. Been able to reel in within 8 tenths now. So the gap is shrinking. You see the battle on screen though. Galvin not backing down. Matt Taylor trying to run away as Musselman slips back. Musselman is on the same strategy as Taylor and Galvin, mind you.
Textbook there for Jason Galvin. Just wait for the opportunity on the outside to open itself up. There's the look at that leading choo-choo train. Kinsella hanging back a bit, not going to gain the most of the fuel saving. Do remember Henry Bennett's entangled in the pack as well, probably the best way to describe it. 38th and last 1 lap down, but can still benefit from the fuel saving of those around him and run to their tempo, maybe even work with Andrew Kinsella to work their way forward. 30 minutes into this race, it is starting to fly on by. Nice long green flag runs. That's what we've known to become accustomed with here in the Lionheart IndyCar Series.
You gotta love these long runs like this in the clean, respectful racing we've seen throughout the pack today. Especially when they zip on the brakes here at Indianapolis Motor Speedway, already approaching the quarter-way mark. That's how quick this race has gone so far, and that's how clean a lot of the battling has gone on, to say the very least. Still, it's the matter of, can you execute long-term? We're already halfway through this fuel run.
Lap 45 of 200. 6 cars in the chance right now as Caleb Bensi, Matthias Kraus will swap around on the run into turn 3. Bensi's up 5 now into 12. In the car that sits 3rd in the Butt Kicker Rookie of the Year standings. Very impressive run. Just happens to be in a rookie class that includes the likes of Malechka and Van der Sande. Not a rookies by any means in this Dallara IR18. Back and forth they go, snaking their way in towards turn number 1. Van der Sande's again up to 19th. We'll track his progression. In terms of drivers that are struggling the most, outside of course of Henry Bennett, I think the big surprise is potentially the slide backwards that we see from Lionel Kalisto, maybe even Tyler Groff as well. Both drivers losing spots, and Tyler Groff in some trouble down on the apron.
And pulling off into the pit lane, in fact, with the garage. What happened to Tyler Groff? He was running just fine, it looked like, but I think he's hit the wall for mandatory repairs. Yes, Groff is done.
My, oh my, just when we were talking about 38 cars in this race and still surviving, Tyler Groff becomes victim number 1. Let's have a look at a Race Spot TV replay then straight away and see what happens here. Through turn 1, up in the groove, and whoop, that's a slight contact, but that's all it needs to damage the car significantly.
That was what we talked about, an incident from the start of the race for last year's running. See, already can tell he's a bit tight, still shuffling to the gear, slams the wall. That's mandatory suspension damage. And that means end of the day for Tyler Graff, 37 still remaining on track.
Now, do we count that as a commentator's curse or not?
Well, I don't think I count it as one, no.
I was talking about him and saying he hadn't been having a great day. If anything, I was trying the reverse commentator's curse, the no you sort of a surprise. Back and forth, still for the lead they go. Josh Chin has now lost out a full second back from Pinheiro. You remember Henry Bennett's between Pinheiro and Chin for the time being, so plenty to watch for in terms of those groupings. Ryan Otis has Michael O'Brien right behind him, and O'Brien has come oh so close to eventually getting a Lionheart Retro Series win. Seems to be stuck in that position of only being second best. But the 45 car, down 2 spots from where he started this race, still running nicely in 15th, JP.
Don't worry, started the race, in fact, and he's hoping that the car message that's on there doesn't happen. He is getting tight with the arrow, washing a bit of smoke in the back of the pack there.
That was Stefan Larkamp. I'm glad I was on mute because I just made some rather uncomfortable noises to myself. But that was suboptimal, and Stefan Larkamp was very lucky not to loop it by himself.
Yeah, able to hold on to it, bringing a big puff of smoke from that and scaring a few drivers, to say the least. But outside of that, the battles keep up. Barrett Rolfe is also down with a broken chassis. He also had an issue battling with Dustin Wardlow, who's in the grass.
We stay green for the time being. Larkamp, Rolfe, Wardlow. Wardlow is well and truly parked. He'll have to take a reset back down onto pit road. Larkamp has nursed his car, his machine back onto the lane, so clearly some damage for him, and we'll take a look at what happened to him first so we can figure out exactly what state the car was in when we saw it going sideways. Again through turn 1 and 2, up into the wall. He doesn't bail to the access road like we saw before, so clearly the car not very happy, and he also touches the curb. Good car control there.
Big save after running on the rumble strips, absolutely there. But big tempers absolutely flared up with Wardlow and Rolfe, because Rolfe was trying to make the pass, I believe, to Arjuna and try to clear himself. We'll have to take a look and see possibly on that one. But right now, the swap draft continues up at the front.
Let's take a look at that. So it was right behind what we were just seeing with Stefan Larkamp. And you're right, Rolfe just pushes up the track, washes the Candyman up into the wall, and somehow we stayed green. That was very, very lucky.
Especially with all the body parts flying around from the chassis, as well as the wing parts. Adam Frazier's already had to come down to the pit lane as well all of a sudden, so Frazier, now with an issue as well, has just parked it for the rest of the evening. Larkamp, mandatory repair still.
One by one, they are dropping like flies. Let's have a look at what happened to Adam Frazier into turn 1 again. Deja vu. Third time we've seen a car up into the wall and plowing. They're starting to struggle. I wonder if the wind is playing a slight factor here today.
Well, I don't think it's moved so much because it's still facing over top the grandstands, going towards the back straight away. Straight angle. 90-degree angle, in fact. 47 degrees Celsius, the track temperature a little bit higher. 75 degrees Fahrenheit, still the air temperature for reference, 117 Fahrenheit track. I don't know if it's necessarily the wind, just that turn 1 factor of things getting tighter and tighter as the race goes on, starting to really kick up in the pack.
It's a close race so far, past the 50-lap marker as Alexis Newsom got very close to running herself straight into the wall. 38 started. 33 now running. Only Henry Bennett, 1 lap down, is not on the leading lap. Fascinating race so far. It's been green from here, even though we've had multiple moments. Could this be the first ever time that the Lionheart Indianapolis 500 for this IndyCar Series goes caution-free? The lowest marks before this, 2 cautions back in Season 1, and then a couple of years later in Season 3. As it stands, 2 men have controlled the tempo of this race in Robert Malechka and Phil Kraus. Pinheiro's starting to slide backwards as well, JP. What are you seeing from the 56's car?
Right now, from what I'm seeing, trying to change up lines still to get some clean air against the front of the nose. But the main thing for Pinheiro is I feel like based on what he's trying here, he wants to stay in the draft, but he also doesn't want to push the issue, right? You don't want to put yourself out of the projected window to cut out a pit stop. So Piniero's kind of in a balancing act here to try and sort which way does he want to go to hold up here. And the tough thing is, Malechka, Kraus, and Newsom are pulling off and away a little bit now the past couple laps here.
It's slight, but half a tenth there, a half a tenth here. It all starts to add up. This time by Newsom, actually a bit slower than Piniero, so Piniero closed very slightly, but compared to Kraus and Malechka, he is definitely a little bit down on speed, waiting for his opportunity to get into the lead of the race. Henry Bennett has been cleared by Joshua Chin, who now sits about 8 tenths back from Adriano Piniero. And going to what I was saying earlier when it came to the iRacing Indianapolis 500 earlier this year, Alexis Newsom was the one getting the fuel-saving help from Team i5G. I wonder if Henry Bennett is doing that right now to Andrew Kinsella, because guess where he has slid right into? The perfect fuel-saving margin for Andrew Kinsella.
Kinsella's lost a bit of time to Chin, but I don't know if necessarily that's the major panic yet. The tough thing is, the lead pack is running 40.8. Kinsella is massively tight, though, in the midst of this draft now of Henry Bennett.
Still back and forth for the race lead, looking up and down, starting to stall out is Van der Sant, but Jason Brophy is now plus 14. He's working his way forward with Tony Schowen and Aaron Morgan as well up the road in front of them. Yes, they've been large benefactors of the 5 or 6 cars having trouble, but Jason Brophy trying to carve his way through the field inside of Tony Schowen.
Well, Tony Schowen giving him the space is the main thing. There has been tension there. Not too much. Pit window indicated for next time by as well. Keep in mind, the window is now open for some of the drivers in this pack as Brophy can't get it done.
Relative ease is how you describe the swap drafting affairs at the front. These are two very experienced drivers who are giving just enough rhythm to let drivers go, and as JP indicated, down to pit lane they come nice and tidy on the entry once more.
Robert Malechka the third is sped. Malechka the third sped at the cone.
It looks so neat and tidy. He didn't even lock up in comparison to Phil Kraus, but it is Malechka with a speeding penalty, the second Powerslide Motorsports driver to have sped so far today.
When he tried to get back in the gas, Arjuna, 5 miles an hour too quick. You see nice and tidy, but right here he's at 64, gets out of the gas, realizes it too late. He's crossed the sector mark.
The moments that define the race. Phil Kraus rolls, Malechka will be there for about 20 seconds longer, JP.
40, in fact. With the stop and hold for the speeding, that's a lengthy stop. That's going to take Malechka the third to a lap down behind Bennett, possibly. Or if not, battling with Bennett for the first driver, a lap down. And remember, no lucky dog, meaning they have to hope for a caution.
Cautions do tend to come out when we are in that cycle of pit stops. We've already seen just how easy it can be to make a mistake in turn 1. We've seen how easy it is to make mistakes on pit entry. 2 drivers at the top of this field have already been caught out on pit entry. Here is a look at Van der Sant trying to get a move done on Paul Jenkins, who will hold him off for the time being.
Van der Sant still trying to gather things together. And this is to be expected how difficult it would be for the 96 to cut through the pack. You can tell Van der Sant's got a lot of confidence. The tough thing is getting there, getting that mark, getting to the outside. He prefers the outside for the passes. And that's what he's been trying to do so much, and it's so difficult to do in the heart of the field.
Here goes Joshua Chin down to the pit lane. Nice and early on the brakes for him. Doesn't seem like there's any drama for the 93 machine. Piniero, Newsom, Kinsella still out there and rolling on the track. Jason Galvin down to pit road as well.
Those drivers making it 28, 29 laps respectively. So now it's going to be curious to see what happens for Piniero and Newsom. they now have a good opportunity to battle things forward for the rest of this race after the trouble for Wachka the third. Newsom picking up the run there. No indication from either of them quite yet when it comes to Pinheiro. Just taking that higher groove, and it looks like they will commit to the longer fuel save.
If you're wondering why Joshua Chin came in a little bit earlier than normal, well, it was because his teammate Phil Kraus was left without a dance partner, so they had to make sure they had someone in line to be able to work together, to try and swap back and forth. It's worked out fairly well, as Joshua Chin has emerged just a couple of hundredths behind his teammate Phil Kraus. They'll work together and look to try and carve their way forward. Paul Jenkins on pit road. Alexander Van der Sand's also come down to pit road. It's a busy time again. Second green flag cycle of pit stops. Hopefully drivers will be a little bit less nervous than the first time, JP.
Especially with how the race is trending, where it's been getting spread out a little bit, and that's a good thing to be able to dive your way to the pit lane with the full confidence you're going to need, depending on how confident you actually feel coming in. Some drivers not as hard on the entry compared to some of the others, will say. And there's that difference mark that can really cause some problems, to say the very least, if you don't have a driver in sync with their car and in sync with what their competitors are about to do.
Bit of drama in the virtual paddock about some of the incidents that we've had so far. Like we mentioned, some races are bigger than championships, and drivers want to take full advantage of what is on the line. 32 laps now working for your race leaders as they continue to go. Kinsella's come down to pit road, now just leaves 10 cars at the front of this queue. For a couple further back behind them, still yet to come down on towards pit lane. Newsom and Pinheiro setting themselves up very nicely. There's a long way to go. There's a long road to still be navigated through here in Speedway, Indiana. Morgan, Brophy, Lanini, Carey, another whole train of cars on pit road, JP.
Still liking the window for Newsom and Pinheiro, though. 32 laps for Musselman, Kraus and company. So they're trying to catch up a little bit on that strategy window. Guyon indicating he'll coming up here along with Chris Fowler. Meanwhile, Kinsella very quietly, though, is having a very solid race. Remember, it was talked about by Adam Blocker while watching qualifying. If he was inside the top 10, he thought he'd be a contender.
Kinsella's now in front of Pinheiro and Newsom, of course, who are yet to come down to pit road. 6 full seconds back from Phil Kraus and Joshua Chin.
What happened to Pinheiro? I think Pinheiro's got a problem here.
Has he run it too close on fuel because they're both coming down? Newsom is locked up, but I think you are right. Pinheiro might be out of fuel.
Yeah, the engine power here at...
You can hear him clutching as well. It's going to be crucial now that Pinheiro does not miss his box, JP, because if he does and requires a toe to even be slid backwards half a foot, that again will put to bed any chances of victory here today.
There's a massive amount of time loss either way already. And I don't know if that's going to be a good spot. Yes, they just barely got him in as Newsom is already gone.
Pinheiro flew too close to the sun. His wings have been clipped up underneath him. There goes Newsom in front. You can see Chin and Kraus, who control this race. Newsom's going to struggle to stay in their draft.
Trying to still pick up the speed, but no dancing partner now. Next nearest partner is Kinsella, way far back on the racetrack. So now, Private Label Team Hype has this race right where they want it to be.
1.5 clear of Newsom. Then a further 5 back to Kinsella, a further 4 back to Pinheiro. 5 contenders have become 3 in the blink of an eye. And JP, we talk about strategy. There is now a big gulf starting to form. And this is why we love these longer races. You set your stall out, and by the end of the race, we know whose strategy, whose calls have played out the best. Pinheiro back down to pit road.
And Pinheiro's picked up another black flag. He might have gotten an unsafe pit exit, possibly. Not quite sure. But either way, Pinheiro, huge black flag.
I mentioned it earlier. I wonder if Pinheiro just maybe ran out on pit exit a little bit wider than he was allowed to. But just like Henry Bennett's day was ruined in pit lane, Adriano Pinero's race has been blinked out in the flip of the coin. A call there. It doesn't look like anything on pit exit for Pinheiro, at least from what I was able to gather. Big drama. Indianapolis, I say it's going to claim its winner. It's not leaving without several victims. Alexander Van der Sande is up into 8th position, JP. What a charge. And he's only 17 seconds back from the leader. All it takes is one caution to change everything.
The execution in the pit lane has been flawless for Van der Sande so far. That's where a majority of the spots been picked up by the purple and white machine. Now it's the matter of playing it smart as well, especially with battles like this for 6th up in front of him. Bensi wants to go. Van der Sande, though, a little bit quicker and a little bit more confident on the 3rd groove.
70 laps in the books here for round 10 of your 2022 Lionheart IndyCar Series. We're in Speedway, Indiana for our 2nd Triple Crown race, the HyperX Indianapolis 500. Don't go anywhere, you're watching RaceSpot TV and the Lionheart IndyCar Series.
With the Butt Kicker Gamer 2, what you see and what you hear is what you feel. Butt Kicker. The future is feeling.
Welcome back to RaceSpot TV and coverage of your 2022 Lionheart IndyCar Series. We've made our trip to Speedway, Indiana for round 10 of this IndyCar Series. It's the HyperX Indianapolis 500-mile race. Welcome back to RaceSpot TV, where alongside myself, Arjuna Kankipati, joined in the RaceSpot TV commentary booth by the one and only Justin Prince. And Justin, we've been green from the drop of the flag so far, but not even at the halfway marker of this race. There are plenty of storylines to be talking about.
Speeding penalties, and more speeding penalties have been a major hamper for some of your top contenders. Robert Muchka III, last car in the lead lap, picked up a speeding penalty during the last window. Jason Galvin, one of the bigger movers up towards the front, picked up a speeding penalty. Pinheiro picked up a penalty on pit exit after running out of gas, has just parked his car. And this is all while others are struggling in the midst of the dirty air. It's now Kraus, Chin, and Newsom in the best position to win this race, but with heavy traffic to deal with soon.
The top three split by 1 second, then an 8.2 gap to Kinsella, a further 9 back to this battle that we're watching right now. And Justin Prince is right, that lap traffic's going to start playing a factor. Crucially, for one man, and one man in particular, Robert Malechka III in that 91 car, sped on pit lane, but Justin Prince, he is still, at least for now, on the lead lap.
It's taken a lot of work to get to this spot. Keep in mind, near dead even on the strategy. It's going to be important to play this smart, as Larkamp gives plenty of space now for the race leaders. Malechka III, I should rather say, needs to play this in a very solid position. Something just happened meanwhile to Callisto. He's now in with mandatory repairs.
Another car falls by the wayside then. This time it's the 97 of Lionel Callisto. Again, 38 started. We're down to 32 still running, and we've been caution-free. A lot of these incidents have been solo car incidents outside of those issues for drivers getting onto pit road. I don't think we're out of the woods just yet. I'm expecting plenty more drama, especially into turn 1 where cars seem to be struggling.
Extremely struggling with the aero wash, and that's going to be something drivers need to be able to be up on when it comes to the tools for the rest of the way based on these trends. But speaking of trends, with that draft being a factor for Kraus in the draft, swapping has stopped for the first time all race, mind you. That's been a trend, the swap draft before this mark.
We've reached that point where lap traffic is going to interfere enough. We've already seen that the car third in line has never been close enough to have a look to the inside, regardless of actually being able to complete the pass, not even close enough to have a look. And you can see Malechka's weaving back and forth because he knows that with Ron Hacker in tow, going 1 lap down is by no means a death sentence. Very much throwing the chances of victory out of the door. 79 laps clean. We expect some sort of drama at some point. Side by side in that gaggle of cars further back, AJ Musselman down the inside of Matt Taylor.
Musselman not having an easy run, to say the least, for 5th position here. 19 seconds back of the leader, yes. But these drivers are not backing down. Matt Taylor wants to be amongst those in the swap draft leading this pack. Bensie's wanted to pass by a couple times. Van de Sant's right there watching all of this. Compared to what we've seen up at the very front to start the race, the patience level's about a couple notches lower compared to what we've seen.
We think back to what we've seen so far in 2022. The best race, maybe Watkins Glen, in terms of battles that Phil Kraus actually had to deal with on track. You also think to the race that we had at was it Nashville, where he had to fight from the end of the field to work his way forward. We've been in for a fun 2022, if not for the fact that one person has won the majority of the races.
I mean, Phil Kraus showed some great potential last season, lived up to the potential this season. Some of the drivers who have shown good potential in the series the past couple seasons, such as Matt Taylor in this pack, mind you. Musselman having the best run of his season by far, though, Arjuna. Give him credit in the 54.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Musselman always seems to have the pace, but doesn't seem to convert it always with qualifying. Up 2 positions so far today inside of the top 5. Bensie's plus 10 to recover from a stumble in qualifying for him. And after Alex Van der Sant, well, not stumble, but bobble into the wall, plus 27 has fought his way back up into the midst of the top 10. You see at the very bottom of the tower, drivers that have struggled in today's race. Still back and forth, Musselman and Taylor starting to swap back and forth. They're 10 seconds back from Andrew Kinsella. He's not running in no man's land by any means, JP, but he's very much, by all intents and purposes, by himself right now.
Well, he does have a car next to him. That's bright side. Unfortunately, it's Larkamp. No offense to Larkamp, but he's had 6 minutes of repairs done on that car. So that's the tough thing. He's losing time here and there on these laps whenever he doesn't have the pull of the draft. But believe it or not, we're already up on another pit window coming up. And interesting enough, it's Luis Gonzalez Nunez who's indicated that he wants to come in the 14 car towards the mid to backpack. Only 24 laps into the run, so that's something to keep an eye on in terms of how the fuel burn goes now the rest of the way.
Surely, we don't go green flag to flag. I say that as someone who's enjoying the green flag pit stops, but as it stands right now, it's a swapping between a lap down car and your leader. I want to see some of these drivers get a chance to fight back forward. Includes Jason Galvin, Henry Bennett, Malechka, all with speeding penalties to discuss. Chin's up there in the mix as well. And we're at that point of the season, JP, when we can look back on 2022 and that first half of the campaign, and we can talk about some of the standout drivers. Bensi, for one, by far, if you take out Phil Kraus from the equation, is on a great campaign so far. Van der Sande as well. I mean, maybe has had a couple of down moments, but he's always bounced back well from them. And many drivers who are standing out in 2022.
You mentioned the standouts, absolutely, when it comes to Bensi. Been trying to battle in some of the various racetracks because his specialty, I've noticed, is short tracks based on the Speedway Series repertoire. But when it comes to Van der Sande, before it was solid speed of the speedways, but I think over the past few months, we've seen this in official racing in particular. Van der Sande ended up racing a lot of those races, becoming contenders in those races, and in turn, I think that really helps being able to compete against the best. As some have said, if you want to be able to truly develop as a driver, you need to race the top drivers around you in your respective discipline.
It's why the more top-level series there are for a car, the more developed the top end is of the community. You can sharpen the knife week in, week out, and really develop racing acumen and a racing brain that will put yourself in the right position at the right times. We're watching backwards of 16th spot, where Aaron Morgan sees an 8-second gap up the road in front of him to Andrew Marquez. These cars are in danger of going a lap down because pace of the leader is not favorable. 3/10 loss last time by for Morgan compared to Kraus, and Kraus is starting to roll his way through the stragglers at the very tail end of this pack, JP.
And he's lost his drafting partner in Malechka III, who's already come into pit after 27 laps. This is going to be the tough thing. Their pace is solid, keep in mind, but it's a couple tenths off of Philip Kraus in general. And the tough thing is, when you're a couple tenths off, that really adds up long term to where they are right now. For Kraus, it's not going to be too easy to pass them, but I think a majority of these spots for this pack are going to be made up in the pit window coming up here on the entry.
Remember, Joshua Chin bailed from the strategy he was on to help his teammate out in Phil Kraus. They control the tempo of this race as they carve their way through lap traffic. Next in line, Mike Rigney in the 00 machine. Second Triple Crown race. And of course, if you think back to who won our first Triple Crown race, it's the man that leads now. Never in series history, JP, has a driver won all 3 Triple Crown races in the same calendar year.
It's because it's so difficult to do, right? Because it takes precision at 3 different racetracks and 3 different full distance runs or double points distance runs. And if you make one major slip up, especially on a pit entry, let's say, you end up losing that race and your chances are out the window. But so far, Kraus has been right there dialed in along with a buddy in Chin who's been right there and committed to help him get to his goal.
Relatively tidy on the pit box entry from Josh Chin and Phil Kraus, who both roll alongside each other. Chin a little bit quicker than Phil Kraus, maybe requiring a little bit less fuel in the car as the 93. They'll emerge in the thick of the traffic. Helpful for them to get back up to speed. They've only come out in 14th and 15th position. That is how the tempo of this race has really swung in their direction. By stark contrast, Jason Brophy in the third of the private label team cars entered today. Well, they pitted and they've come out in front of him. It's a gulf as big as that. Bensi plus 12, Van der Sant plus 29. Otis is plus 8 as well. We've been talking about the likes of Showing, Carey, Brophy, Van der Sant and company. There's many others that have been relatively strong here today. I think Matt Taylor might have had a bit of a moment. He's lost a whole bunch of ground.
Taylor was in a good spot before this mark, now losing all his buddies. Matt Taylor's got a problem. Matt Taylor's got mandatory repairs. Matt Taylor must have gotten to the wall somewhere.
You saw him bail to the access road on the entry to turn 3. Heads up driving from the Madworks Motorsports machine. Grab a look at the RaceSpot TV replay, and again it's turn 1. Sliding up the track into the wall. You break your suspension, you do damage to that car. You can see him wiggling on the exit of turn 2, but that's not where the damage was done.
Indeed, and Matt Taylor, now that's a lengthy stop, to say the least, takes him right out of contention, right in the midst of the pits windows, too. So move Musselman up to 3rd as a result of that trouble for the number 8 machine.
Another one bites the dust. Like we're saying, one by one, they are all running into some trouble or the other. When does that start to influence the likes of Chin, Kraus, maybe Newsom? Who, even though Newsom is running at the front of the field by herself, has got Rigney and the cars in front, all feeding a healthy dose of draft to the factory back number 53.
And the major thing is, how will Newsom be able to keep on trying to execute her strategy? Because we mentioned the strategy of cutting out a pit stop. That seems to be the target when it comes to the number 53 machine here today, especially with the help on the box and Christian Steele.
Might have added Aaron Morgan to the list of retirees as well. Attrition is playing a large factor now as we approach about half the cars being at least one lap down at this stage, not even halfway through this race. We talk about how tough this race is. It's being borne out in the results so far. Paul Jenkins in the 35, pits this time by.
Couple others you see rolling in. Laura Camp amongst the lap cars in the pit lane. So that execution's so critical now. But for Newsom, the execution's been really strong. I think Newsom's still in the contention for this win if it stays green. That's the critical part. If it doesn't, it's Chin and Kraus with the dictated pace so far amongst the teammates, as Chin still can't find a way around the traffic.
Kinsella comes down to pit road this time by. See the different splits in the fork starting to roll. Kinsella was on a similar strategy to Newsom at the start of this race. Now, very, very different situations for all of these teams, all of these drivers, as they understand what exactly they've got to do. Relatively long in the box for Kinsella, a 10-second stop.
So a longer stop once more coming in, as AJ Musselman's indicated he wants to pit this time by. Gonna have to be careful though in this pack. A lot of intense battling. Some of these drivers trying to find that extra speed too. You have to think with the weight checker. That's what happened with Aaron Morgan's car, as in goes Van der Sant to the box.
Very early pit stop for Van der Sant. Hits his marks nice and tidily. Let's see if AJ Musselman can do the same thing here in the number 54 factory backed machine. Into the spot he goes, up on the jacks. Full tank of fuel, 4 Firestone tires going onto that car. It's going to drop and be held while the rest of the fuel is thrown into the car. Van der Sant will emerge just in front, winning the race off of pit road.
The execution still dead on there. If anything, that puts Van der Sant in the contention. Did he cross the line though? We'll have to see if it's an unsafe pit exit, because his right side tires did cross that white line. No penalty yet from the sim.
I think he got away with that. We've been hyping that up, but all the drivers seem to have been relatively okay with pit exits so far. They have adapted to the changes about as quick as one would expect. So Newsom still leads as we wait for her to come in. Let's grab a look at what happened to Aaron Morgan. This time opposite end of the racetrack. Not turn 1, it's turn 3. Up in the groove, into the wall. Deja vu, even though it's at a different point on the track.
Too much speed. Simple as that. Up the racetrack. Into the pit lane. He has to go in out of the race from that contact. Bensi, Kraus, O'Brien in. No issues for their entry. 38
has become 30 very quickly. Kalisto, Larkamp running 10 and 16 laps down apiece as they try and salvage some sort of a result from today's double points race. Inches away from the halfway marker of this race. Matthias Kraus will roll in front of Michael O'Brien. Slow and quiet day for Kraus, who's still inside the top 15. So all he's really looking for is Joe Branch will come down to pit from inside of the top 3.
Really liking this now for Newsom right now. Has the track position, has the strategy and execution. Just a couple laps away from their respective window to make it a halfway. Just a 3-stopper if they make it 33, 33, 33 from there, or 34. Newsom's right where she needs to be. With more stops coming in, you see there. And others like Otis and Fowler trying the strategy, but they're half a track back, which is the major difficult part of this execution for them.
Key for Newsom has been that speed, the tempo, the fact that lap traffic has more often than not been helping her out, but this time she'll look onto the inside of Mike Wrigley and slide on through. Only 6 cars left on the lead lap. If a caution flew now, it would very much shake up the running order. Newsom off of turn 4, still out there on the track. Fuel mileage, no worries for the 53 machine.
It's still going strong indeed. Newsom hitting the goal halfway next time around to be able to make it basically about a 2-stopper from here.
Half the race has been completed caution-free. Brian Beard will come down to the pit lane, and a big puff of smoke. Might just have sped there, but I think the 5 might just have gotten away with it. Does Newsom get to the halfway marker without a trip down pit road? Does not look like it. Here she comes, the 53 on pit lane.
Newsom trying to keep it in, gets it in. Nice and smooth on the entry, although there was the lockup of the left side tires. Now it's the matter of just keep up with Chin and Kraus. The tough part is they were only 30 seconds back before this stop. The delta in the lane once you finish the stop before the cones, about 35 seconds.
I think the key now for Newsom is to make other friends for this race. It's not so much be concerned about those cars that are already going as Newsom revs the engine and starts to roll out of her pit box. For Newsom, it's about getting close to Andrew Kinsella, seeing if he's willing to be the hole in the air, the helping hand that enables this 53 car to make it without that extra stop. She's going to come out in the midst of some lap traffic. Will not be the worst thing in the world. Newsom 5 seconds back from your race leader.
Has to be projected, so Newsom losing a bit of ground, long run with no drafting partner there. Still liking the strategy though, just has to work with some of this lap traffic and hope they're able to play friendly. The main thing though is, Chin, originally you talked about the possibility of the undercut coming in to help Kraus. If anything, Chin right now is in a better spot than Kraus to be able to come away with the win because he's getting around the traffic quicker and easier than Kraus has.
Emerged off of pit lane in the lead of this race, and now Joshua Chin leads the HyperX Indianapolis 500 for a iRacing Indy 500 winner. Has led 30 laps coming into this race. Could this be the day he adds the Lionheart Indy 500 win to his resume? Let's turn up the engines. Let's listen to the sights and sounds of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. There aren't too many better sounds than that. The noises of engines reverberating in the cathedral that is the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. The Muscleman and Van der Sant fighting back and forth in the train of cars that runs fifth on back. They're trying to close on Andrew Kinsella. They haven't been too successful just yet, JP.
And that swap draft is efficient when you have it fully coordinated just right. And it's a little bit earlier down the straightaway compared to what we've seen before from Kraus and Malechka III. So I think that's partly the factor, just the timing. The main thing, too, is Kinsella, in the regards to the 41 machine, did get some draft recently from Ron Hacker, but no longer has that. So now I think there's a chance to close up a little better, or a little more.
There is Newsom, who's closed the gap down to 4.2, as JP was pointing out. Brophy and Otis back and forth just inside of the lead lap. Jason Brophy, another car having to start at the tail end of the field, this time because of an end-of-line penalty for contact at Suzuka last time out. He's making the most of it. Up in 14th, 24 positions gained.
Nice job so far from Brophy. Now it's 23, but for Brophy, just doing it quietly, methodically, into the pit strategy. Just trying to execute in the box. And for Brophy, he hasn't been too flashy with it. The tough thing is, there's more battling up ahead, as already coordination being discussed over the radio amongst these two. Your friends are where you find them sometimes.
One of the advantages of online racing, you can have a direct line of communication to anyone in the field if you so choose. Now, sometimes that gets you in trouble. Sometimes you don't want to talk about drivers or talk to drivers. Sometimes you just deal with it. Only in sim racing can you do certain things. That includes a race that I commentated on earlier this morning, Justin, where we had the reigning Formula One World Champion and the reigning NTT IndyCar Series Champion sharing a car in an official BMW-sanctioned esports event. What timeline am I living in? Sometimes I do wonder.
You're living in the timeline of 2022.
It's all you needed to know. Although, having said that, you're living in the alternate timeline that began in 2020 probably describes it a little bit better.
Maybe. You never know when it comes to timelines. By the way, Brophy just passed 2 cars in one straightaway.
Not waiting around. Is the 88 machine up on the wheel and going. The Oregon native up to 13th position. You'll be happy that I'm going to call it a Grello car, although it is really yellow. Let's be completely honest there. Race lead has opened up very slightly by virtue of all of this traffic. Josh Chin now 9/10 clear of the pole man, Phil Kraus.
Yeah, and that's with the traffic working to Chin's favor, working with Malechka III now for the swap draft. So there goes that working with each other strategy, more so trying to undercut your teammate's strategy almost. These two private label team hype cars making it clear they want to see who can get that top prize for this race.
Do you remember? Co-owner of the private label team hype team is the one and only Tommy Milner, a member of the Corvette racing family in the IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship. Now, Tommy has done strategy on occasion for the team here in the Slynart IndyCar Series. Today, he's preoccupied by this race called the 6 Hours of Watkins Glen or something along those lines. It's not at all part of any sort of major championship, of course, but that race is already in the books. Tommy might be watching on with eager anticipation as his cars run 1, 2, and 13th for the time being. Now, usually we'd see a 4th private label team hype machine in the form of Connor Harrington. Unfortunately, Connor Harrington not racing today with some family matters. We wish him and his family the best during these difficult times. The gap at the front, though, is now up over a full second, and Newsom has lost ground as well, JP. Things are swinging in the direction of Joshua Chin.
Yeah, Chin running away still with that swap, as well as right in the draft of Brophy and company. That's going to really help him in turn. Newsom's losing tons of ground, though, because at the other end of the straightaway, seen a little speck of that red and yellow machine. Newsom is struggling to try and pass the traffic now. Before Newsom was gaining, now is stuck in the dirty air of Chris Lanini and getting some aero push coming around the racetrack.
Unable to clear on the exit of turn 2. As we etch ourselves closer to another cycle of pit stops. Newsom may only be 11 laps into her stint, but the golf in strategy is so significant, so severe, that Chin and Kraus are working lap 23 of their run. They have double the amount of wear on their tires as compared to Alexis Newsom. Luis Gonzalez Nunez from 1 lap down coming into pit lane.
That's on the different strategy, a little earlier strategy for Nunez the previous window, so keep that in mind. That's how quick the laps are churning around here. But the major difference I'm noticing, 12 laps, the difference between Chin and Kraus and that machine for Newsom. That is huge. And that is about more than half the job done to save that extra pit stop.
Will we run green? That is the question that all the strategists, all the engineers, all the drivers want answered. Working lap 113, 114 now of this 200 lap affair. Van der Sant and Musselman continue to go back and forth with Caleb Bensi in close pursuit. Behind them, Joe Branch is close as well. At the rate that we're going, though, would not be shocked if maybe only the top 5, maybe the top 10, ended on the lead lap at this point in the race. I do see our YouTube chat is quite delighted with this topic of pizza. I'm getting quite hungry. One comment in particular from Mark Cohn was saying that to Andrew Kinsella's new wife, you need to tell Andrew to hurry up and win this race so you can order a pizza already. It's a little different environment, a Sunday race than a Wednesday night environment, I would say, Justin.
Yeah, I was talking about this with longer races like this in the previous broadcast. It's talked about where, in this type of circumstance, some people have prepared snacks or beverages alongside them to make sure they stay hydrated or nutrition filled. Others just grab whatever's closest to them as things go flying around to the next closest thing to myself. But in our words, if you want to be able to keep yourself focused fully on the racetrack, you need to have that stuff. You don't, you're having a dizzy spell by lap 100.
What snacks do you have next to you, JP?
A drink bottle.
Okay.
Or insert brand here.
Yes, no, we are similar there. All I have is my bottle of water, at least for today's event. That sounds like a good idea. Why can't us commentators chow down during a race when we're watching on and enjoying? The gap for the lead has closed down, and Van der Sant and Musselman still try and close. And Andrew Kinsella that runs in fourth. Chin and Kraus now split by no cars. Malechka down to pit lane this time by the private label Team Hype duo, probably in 2 laps from now.
Expecting those stops to be very intense for these drivers to make sure they dictate the rest of their strategies, because remember, the magic number for Newsom still is to get to about 66 laps to go or so, and the further Newsom can go in this window, the better it is for her. When it comes to Chin and Kraus, their bet is made. Their bet is already saying, we're going for an extra stop and hoping that we're able to catch up to Newsom. If not, be able to try and make sure there's at least a caution. But you never know what's going to happen. They've got the raw pace up at the front, even though Chin is trying to hold on to things there.
He's trying to hope that his internet connection survives the next 5 minutes or so, because a couple of sketchy moments there for Chin, especially when he's rounding himself on some lap traffic. Past Gonzalez Nunez they go. Next in line, the Alcantech NHR Esport machine, who pulls out of the way of Philip Kraus. Otis in front of them, going side by side with Matt Taylor. Plenty of traffic to dice their way through.
Very dicey with some of this traffic, having to be smart here as well. You want to hold on to the lead lap, yes, but you also don't want to end up causing major tempers to flare amongst the leaders. How about near the 30 wide with some of the traffic? Luis Gonzalez Nunez amongst those battling 2 laps down in this train. Also getting around Matt Taylor, who is 10 down.
Nervy moments for many of these drivers. Remember, green so far. If we go green from here, we're looking at 56 odd minutes till the end of this race. An Indy 500 can either fly on by or it can be stop and start and drag on for many of these drivers. You're waiting for this opportunity. Still Muscleman and Van der Sande going back and forth, struggling to close. Newsom has closed a couple of tenths the last couple of laps.
Oh, and it looks like Chin peeling on down there, coming into the pit lane for the race lead. And Newsom just over the radio just indicated something as well there for a split second.
Newsom's tucked up behind one of the Ascari Autosports machines. Will be Mitchell Riggs with Barrett Rolfe out of the race and Kite Bombers back not competing today. Mitchell Riggs, one of the standout performers in terms of rookies this season, very much leading the charge for the Ascari Autosport team. Now Joshua Chin rolling, relatively tidy pit stop. Now slightly offset though from Phil Kraus, who maybe just wanted to go a lap longer, not because he's going to try something different on strategy, JP, but any mistake on pit lane now does not affect both the cars.
Exactly. You don't want to end up impeding yourself. And the major thing when it came to Małeczka and Kraus before, different teams, different agendas. Not so much now with Chin and Kraus, where they work together in that circumstance. In this overcut, might be a bit powerful. We'll see how it plays out. We've seen some of these drivers, when they find clean air pockets, gain tons of time. Kraus near perfect off the pit box.
Gotta be careful. This is where things went wrong for him during the month of May. But nice and tidy, and you can see Josh Chin emerging in the rear view mirrors of Phil Kraus. Kraus will take over the race lead again. But more lap traffic to play a factor. Crucially, in the pit stop cycle, it swung back in the direction of your pole position winner.
Well, Jenkins also ducking into the pit lane. The cycle continuing on here in the midst of things. But still, the eyes on some of these drivers. Bensi trying to stretch it. Is not in the greatest of windows. Needs to save a ton of fuel the next few cycles, or else there's going to be a very quick final circuit around towards the end of the strategy. Kinsella. Right now, no help once again on the lead lap. Trying to sort things out. In fact, no help around at all. Has had no help for a long while. Give him credit, though. Has gained a few seconds on that battle that was going on for the grouping behind him.
Tidy onto pit lane. Does not like he's going to get bit by the speed limit monster. That's claimed so many drivers so far today. Because he was running by himself, off cycle to where he would have wanted to be, extending the stints maybe a little bit further. He's onto pit lane, so is Andrew Marquez in the Alcantech NHR number 63. Onto pit road, trundling down. Newsom extends, only working lap 22 of the stint so far. Be looking to go at least 10 laps more from this point.
And if she does, she's in a prime position to try and win this race. Also in this strategy, Brian Beard. And that's about it for those who are in position to be on the lead lap here. The question is, for Beard's case, what can Brian Beard do, who is 23 seconds back?
He's too far back, you'd have to assume at this juncture. Van der Sande's ticked over to lap 30 on his run as he funnels his way through the short shoot of 1 and 2. He's one to watch for, maybe not on a complete contra strategy, but the last cycle of pit stops will be very much a splash and dash for him as he looks to try and make up a couple more positions. About 76 laps to go. It's getting into danger time, into crunch time. Drivers who have been riding start to pick up the intensity. Start to push the limits a little bit more. Van der Sande tidy onto pit lane, that's crucial. Bensi and Musselman stay out.
That's going to be critical when it comes to this window. Still with the push forward. Chin and Kraus still bunched together by 3/10 the gap. They have a massive, massive advantage built up. Now by at least 20 seconds over Kinsella after this window for reference. Van der Sande might cycle behind him. Yes, Van der Sande cycling behind Kinsella as you still watch the battle.
There goes Kinsella, Van der Sande off of pit road. Might emerge in front of Marquez, so might, by virtue of the undercut, potentially be able to jump up in front of AJ Musselman, who comes down to box this time around.
The Musselman goes 31 laps to 74 laps to go on this window. And we talked about AJ Musselman. This is his best run in this series. He's only had one top 10 in his career. His average finish is 20th. What a run for AJ Musselman.
So into the box goes the factory-backed machine, looking to get in and out as pain-free as possible. To the yard of bricks goes Van der Sant to the pit lane exit. There's AJ Musselman already up to speed though. Van der Sant will sail on through.
Nice and clean, nice and tidy again. Joe Branch, Michael O'Brien coming in. So the window continues to see people jump in and out, in and out, in and out. But with all this, Newsom still in the prime position here. The tough thing is, look at how busy the traffic is. Yeah, Brian Carey trying to hold on to the lead lap. Alex Gouillon in the midst of things. Bradley Sexton up the pack. You have Matt Taylor now getting nearly squeezed by Taylor.
Taylor is 29th, 10 laps down from your leader. Don't think Newsom's going to be too happy. Gets very loose on the exit of turn 2. And Newsom, with a big old bobble, has just seen the race flash before her eyes. She controls the car. She hangs on.
Oh my goodness, that was nearly the whole race thrown out the window right there. Just the timing of one car, one lap car, is enough to throw off all the rhythm, and that could have been a race changer.
How much closer to disaster do we really want to be? Because Alexis Newsom flirted with a line that few would have been comfortable daring to step near. Here's a look at the onboard for Alexis Newsom working through turn 1. Can see down low, getting pinched up high, then a little bit of over rotation, but it's on the exit of turn 2 that things really start to get interesting.
Get a bit of the bump. Tires are already warmed up with the slide. What a bit of a drift for Newsom. And able to hold on to it. Did lose a few seconds, though. Vital few seconds. Now the gap between her, Chin, and Kraus is about 22 seconds.
It's not ideal. Is it still in her favor? That's the question that's on everyone's mind as we wind our way closer and closer to 70 laps to go. Alexis Newsom working lap 29 of her stint. Needs to go a couple of laps longer before she's down onto pit lane.
Harry indicating this time by the plan. Beard still 20 seconds back on all this, still trying to stretch it out. Ryan Otis and Chris Fowler trying to figure out a way to stretch it as well. Give them credit. But Daryl Munstow's project to be a lap down after the window closes here. There goes Newsom's help. Newsom with no draft now.
There's a couple of cars further up the queue that she'll have to try and latch onto. Alexis Newsom now in front of Brian Beard, the only other car on this strategy with a hope of making it work. Ryan Otis, Chris Fowler, and Alex Gouillon, who are running 5th through 7th, also yet to come down and box. Like we were mentioning with Brian Beard, just not in a position to be able to capitalize on the strategy that they're on for a top 5, top 10 finish. And we're talking about valuable points in this double points race. Josh Chin, the gap now to Newsom is 21.5 seconds. They're doing all that they really can, JP, which is bring up the tempo, bring up the intensity, and start pushing as hard as they can.
They've gained about an hour, 2 seconds since the last time we talked about them too. And now they have 3 cars to work with. Jason Brophy is still in this train. Albeit Brophy is on a much different strategy in terms of them right now, in terms of where he is on track. So there's that additional help. Now all 3 cars lined up astern. Now they have a chance to regroup and plan things out. If done right is the critical part.
Brian Beard will box before Newsom. So Newsom is doing a sterling job of the fuel save at the front of the field. Tony Shaw and Matt Houston 2 laps down, swap around. Alex Gouillon rolls off of pit road into the thick of some traffic as well. Still have 30 cars, somewhere in that number, still running out on track of the 38 that took to the start of this race. Newsom's on lap 32 now with 67 odd laps remaining. Hope will be to go one more to try and make it as comfortable as possible, especially given the relative lack of assistance that she's been having from direct teammates, and she does extend 1 lap longer, this time by at the line of 41.649, 3/10 slower than her previous lap.
So now Newsom's right in the window, right exactly where she needs to go. She went the further lap too, which makes it a little bit easier for the back end of this strategy run. All Newsom needs to do right now is hope it stays green. Hope it stays green, because Newsom's right there in a prime position to win this race from this point forward, with her coming to 66 laps to go, as long as she doesn't make any mistakes and no caution.
Still staying out there. What a remarkable run of fuel saving this stint for Newsom. This might be the one that puts her in a race-winning position. The likes of Joe Branch, Caleb Benty behind AJ Musselman, and as I mentioned earlier, Alexander Van der Sant used the undercut to break away from this train of cars, JP.
Exactly what we talked about, the need to try and utilize that, to try and do that. Musselman now looking just to fight for what is currently the 6th position. But what a charge ahead by Joe Branch. Quietly has just been minding his own business, was amongst those with the strategies last season, keep in mind. They also, mind you, have another car in Caleb Benty, also in this train. Newsom is in.
A marathon stint from Alexis Newsom to bring it down to pit road at the end of lap 135. From here, the margins are getting better. Josh Chin, Phil Krause will retake the race lead, but require an extra stop on pit lane compared to Alexis Newsom, who will slide potentially down into 5th position.
Behind Kinsella and Van der Sant, likely, yes. 10.2 in the box. Now it's Chin and Krause 1-2 once more. But Chin still has been able to dictate things single file. There is Newsom coming out. Where's Kinsella is the question. Kinsella is way far back. In fact, it's a 3rd place exit for Newsom.
That is much higher through the field than I anticipated. And again, look at the help that she has in front of her, JP. That's what she needs for this fuel mileage call to work out.
Needs to ride behind Chris Lanini. Needs to ride behind Mitchell Riggs. In particular, I think Riggs is the better of the 2 helpers, and those in the first 2 back at that train. Just stay with them. Work together. 16 seconds back. Try and see if you can close a bit of time, but more so save the gas. As there goes some of the traffic. Lionel Callisto trying to ride the bottom. This will force Newsom off the preferred groove.
We'll watch the lap times. We'll track how this is going to play itself out. Working lap 137 of this round 10 of the Lionheart IndyCar Series. You're watching RaceSpot TV and the HyperX Indianapolis 500. Don't go anywhere. Coming up next, the run to the checkered flag.
With the Butt Kicker Gamer 2, what you see and what you hear is what you feel. Butt Kicker. The future is feeling.
Welcome back to Speedway, Indiana for round 10 of the 2022 Lionheart IndyCar Series, the HyperX Indianapolis 500. Alongside Justin Prince, my name is Arjuna Kankipati in a race that has gone green from the start to so far. Over 50 laps to go, one final cycle of pit stops for some drivers, but with a very interesting fuel mileage game, JP, 3 names are left fighting for the victory so far here today.
For those looking for the extra stop, Chin and Kraus are your favorites there. They have to come in the next 10 laps with how things are playing out with them and their strategy for private label team hype. For Alexis Newsom, though, a chance for history. A chance with this race going green, and if it stays green, to undercut the field by a full pit stop, and that could be the winning equation for Alexis Newsom. But you never know what can happen when it comes to Indianapolis Motor Speedway. One bad turn, one bad stretch, and boom, your race completely changes. You never know what could happen from this point forward with under 60 to go.
You can see Alexis Newsom mired in some traffic, which is really helping her out in terms of the fuel number that she is trying to hit. Chin and Kraus have some help, but really they're looking for speed help. In a fixed setup competition, there is only so much that truly you can do. Malechka and Brophy in front of your race leaders now. 2 drivers that would have wanted to be vying for the race win. See the leaders coming up behind them.
You remember Brophy, EOL, Malechka III was right there in conversations for that race lead early before a speeding penalty. And this is not where they wanted this to play out, you'd have to think. But you also have to consider when it comes to Brophy, a chance to go for a swap draft maybe with the teammate depending on how he likes to play this out, or do exactly that and just let them go. But for Malechka III, it's been a different story. Malechka III has been fighting to hold on to that race lead lap.
Jason Brophy started at the end of the line with a penalty from the previous race. Malechka started on the outside of the front row. It's not that simple in terms of how much one driver wants to fight than the other as well. Remember, Jason Brophy does not want to cause his teammate any undue harm in losing them time in this battle for the victory in the second Triple Crown race of 2022. Another technical blip for Joshua Chin. Hard in mouth moment for the Florida native. These are not the things that you want to be worrying about heading into this cycle of the race. Back behind these drivers, Musselman still sees Bency Branch and Brian Beard in behind.
They also have joined up with Jason Galvin, who is a lap down after some penalties earlier on in this one. So some buffer cars at the very least now for Musselman to be able to try and see if he can muscle forward away. Bency looking a bit frustrated here with Galvin. If anything, look to try and use the 4th line to try and build a run.
Of course, Galvin was running up inside of the top 10 before a speeding penalty in the first cycle of the race dropped him backwards. He'll look to try and get past on AJ Musselman down the inside at turn 1. Displaces them. Malechka's down onto pit road in the 91 machine. So heading into the penultimate cycle of pit stops for many of these drivers.
That being right now in the spot for Chin and Kraus. Keep in mind their window, looking around 50 to go, 20 to go. On the simplest of terms, depending on how far they can stretch it on the gas. Remember, they had an offset last time. Expect the offset this time to be a potential factor. But you know what this also means? If it continues at this tempo, saving a little bit of fuel by putting less fuel in for the final stop could be a talking point in Arjuna.
It will all depend on how close Kraus and Chin are heading into the final cycle of pit stops. Lap 28 for Joshua Chin. He might be in this time by.
Chin's gone as far as 30 laps, so has Kraus throughout this entire race. But with clean air, that fuel burn might be a lot more higher compared to before for some of these drivers, as we've seen throughout the day today. And keep in mind, the track temperature is starting to build higher and higher. That wind hasn't gone and budged any bit of a direction change.
Joshua Chin onto pit road. His 48th start in the Lionheart IndyCar Series, 3 victories to his name coming into today's race. You look back on his previous race wins and you think about some of the sterling performances that we've seen from him on road courses, Sonoma, Mosport, the Mid-Ohio race last year. Today, though, is about a different type of victory, backing up his 2018 iRacing Indianapolis 500 title. Kraus still out there on track, due in this time by.
It's on the trends, yeah. Which would cycle Newsom back up to the race lead, with them being domination station type of drivers today. Of the led laps, only 4 have led laps today. Malechka.
Are we in for some trouble? Sorry, JP. Mitchell Riggs is off the track inside, I think, of turn 2. And again, with a car in strife, we stay under green.
And just out of the racing group in the midst of the grass there, so that was one of the 1 lap down cars. And keep in mind, when it comes to Riggs, seems to have been a wall contact. Meanwhile, Kraus is into the box. Here's a look at the replay. Watch turn 2 exit. Just a little bit too much speed, trying to carry the speed with the weight checker. Boom, carries him to the inside, right to the safer barrier.
iRacing's more lax caution system letting us get away with a lot. There is Chin already up to speed as Kraus rolls through the access road on the inside of turn 2. Chin holds on to the race lead. Malechka will split the leaders.
So now Malechka the third is pinned for the moment, a lap down currently. Needs a lot of luck to go the direction of that way. Keep in mind, how much has the time bleed been popping up for Newsom, who's on that alternate strategy? Kinsella has gone within 8 seconds of the 53. Chin and Kraus are 16, 17 seconds within that. So that gap is coming down in fast compared to the 1 less stop call from Newsom.
Still 50 laps to go. There is a long way to decide today's winner. It is not over by any stretch of the imagination. But is the gamble on fuel paying out in the direction that factory-backed, that Team i5G, that Alexis Newsom calculated coming into this race? Kinsella will box this time by. Canadian rolls down pit lane. No major drama on the entry for him.
Andrew, I remember, was a little upset on the qualifying. Asked him why during the broadcast. He messed up that line, cost him a lot of the track position. You have to feel a bit for Kinsella because he's had the speed, just no one to help him with that pace. Still in conversations right now for the top 5. Give big credit to Kinsella, who really wanted a second victory in his career here.
Can't totally discount the possibility of the third and final step on the podium for the 41 car, but it is still early days. Let's give a shout out to Kinsella for pulling double duty in the HyperX race for the pole as well. Not just, of course, doing his qualifying run, but part of the broadcast team for that as well. Unfortunately, for the next 7 weeks, I am preoccupied on Wednesday evenings with the iRacing Off-Road Championship Series. I'll miss what's bound to be some good races at the Short Track of Iowa, a purpose-built road course like Road America, and then, of course, as well, the trip to the Canadian Tire Motorsports Park that I am very frustrated to be missing. Malechka's going to swap back and forth with Joshua Chin. Phil Kraus might have something to say about that.
Malechka the third, looking to still hold on to what could be for the lead lap here. Van de Sande has already peeled to the pit lane. Kraus reeling him in as well. This will be the tough balancing act. Can Kraus get enough pace to pass the 91, or will Malechka the third give a bit of giveaway? That's the tough balance.
The counterpoint is, if you're Phil Kraus, do you save for one stint and for one alone? Do you ride around in the double draft of Malechka and Chin and try and get this done through the final cycle of pit stops. Remember, Kraus is going to box later than Joshua Chin anyway. Hypothetically, we'll need a little bit less fuel. Why not save, require even less fuel, and try and jump in the pit stop window? That might be something that Kraus starts to think about. Joe Branch down to pit road this time by.
Branch keeping it clean throughout the night. Give credit to as well to Marquez, who's quietly been able to keep his team up in the hunt. Still on the one-stop strategy. Looking, though, once again to the 91 launch to the third. Will there be an air swap draft attempt? Yes, there is late in the corner. Kraus has backed it up and, in fact, might be starting to play with the fuel map.
We talked about this earlier. In-car adjustments. Front and rear anti-roll bar. Change the balance of the car. Weight jacker as well to shift the weight on the car itself. Fuel map will let you extend these stints just a little bit further. Chin able to get back on Malechka on the run down into turn one. The gap between Newsom and Chin is down to 14 seconds. Last time by, almost a full half a second quicker was Joshua Chin compared to your race leader.
That makes me extremely nervous for the strategy now, because Newsom seems to be having to back up a bit, but also really struggling still with finding someone to truly work with the traffic, and that's the major thing right now. Newsom's losing ground on every corner entry and corner exit with the aero wash, having to lift that extra bit more compared to what Chin and Kraus have been able to do with their traffic management and their ability to swap draft. You see what Newsom's dealing with? Not really a great opportunity for a swap draft here.
Watching this line of cars, Alexis Newsom is playing with 4. Strategy call. 35 to go. If she boxes, then you think she's comfortable. She boxes with 35 to go, she's on the outside of the window, looking uncomfortable. 34 to go, looking better. 33, looking very good. Anything less than that basically means Newsom can think about ratcheting up the pace in the final 30-odd laps of this race. How long can she truly go for? Last time by, 7/10 the margin gained by Joshua Chin.
This is too much time lost, Arjuna. I don't know if this is going to be enough for her to hold on here after the pit stop sequence.
Getting past on AJ Musselman in the 54 for factory-backed motorsports. What's happened to Malechka in this situation? He's fallen backwards because of that lap traffic. And all the while, the gap grows between Chin and Kraus, up to 1.3, coming to the yard of bricks.
Chris Lanini coming on in. You see some of that shuffling back there. And Kraus is losing tons of time here. Kraus is really, all of a sudden, he's not able to make any passes in the midst of this traffic. Mateus Kraus also on in the 59.
Also rolling from pit road, Chris Lanini in the 91. So plenty of stops with just over 40 laps to go. Matthias Kraus comes in from 6th position, still requires a splash and dash to the end of the race. From pit road they come. Lanini's trying to merge into a good spot. Ryan Otis battling with Chris Fowler, and Brian Carey carries up 28 positions, although having said that, as he works lap 30 of the stint, he needs a caution to come and help him out.
And has been struggling in the midst of that as well, I will say. I've noticed him hit the bottom of the curbing. Is it curling at the tail end of the lead lap for some? Ryan Otis, meanwhile, also in that strategy window, needing a caution to stay on the lead lap and pin a few others down off that main cycle. Currently, this is not for position, though, that he's in the midst of trying to work behind. This is Nunez he's working behind at the moment. Trying to run from a driver in Fowler he's been with all race.
Under 11, the gap for the race lead. It's a little too close. If you're factory-backed motorsports with 40 laps to go. There's a fascinating chat that's been going on all day in our YouTube live conversation about pizza and various choices of toppings and whatnot, and even local chains. However, there is some slander about pizza, saying that stuffed crust is not good pizza. JP, what are your thoughts on this?
Depends on the place, because it's not easy to make a stuffed crust and cook it properly and taste properly. So you need to have it from the right place if you want a stuffed crust. If you get it from a certain couple different chains, it won't be as good.
Not naming said chains. I like that one. I agree. Stuffed crust is good, especially if you're more creative with what you stuff it with. There's plenty of options which don't have to be uber boring. Under 10, the gap for the race lead though. Another 0.8 of a second disappeared in the blink of an eye. I think if you're Alexis Newsom, at some point you've got to get up and go. I wonder if what Newsom is doing right now, JP, is thinking about the final stint of the race, trying to hit a number that will get her to lap 32. 32 laps to go at that magic marker where she can start easing up and start going a bit harder, forget the fuel saving.
That might be a possibility maybe in terms of that tempo, because right now if this continues, Newsom's not winning the race with the current time bleed. If Newsom picks up the tempo by a significant margin at the end of the race, I think there's less panic. But the main thing that she might be doing here is maybe saying there's a big train of cars here, I'm going to lower the fuel maps, try and back it down so you can do exactly the point you just mentioned. Go hard at the end of the stint, try and maintain the gap after the pit cycle, and hope that Chin and Kraus don't get within your wake to be able to battle with you.
It's a good point. How many cars are in front of Newsom? The time required to get past each and every one of them maybe doesn't play out in the cycle, in the calculation as favorable. Maybe the better call is to just save until you can get to pit lane from here. We'll wait and see. It's all coming to a head. I did mention as well, we may only end up with the top 5 still left on the leading lap. Don't count that out of the realm of possibilities either. Just 6 cars left on the leading lap as we cross the line, 36 to go.
Gap down to under 9 seconds and closing for Chin. Here's a look at what Chin's dealing with though. A lot of battling in front. That's not for position. Galvin and Branch. Branch amongst those hoping to stay in the lead lap after things cycle.
You can also see Phil Kraus has lost out. 3 cars between him and his teammate at the front of this field. 2 seconds the gap between the 93 and the 19. Andrew Kinsella past Chris Fowler. Fowler, another car, trying to just extend as long as he can, working lap 31 compares to Newsom's 30. Ryan Otis, another car, working lap 31. Not trying to vie for victory, or vying for those double points on the line. A lot of these drivers looking for some luck as well, midway through the campaign.
Especially with Chris Fowler. It's not been Fowler's season, where Fowler's been in contention for so many victories, but has really nothing to show for it point-wise. Now is hoping that Newsom doesn't find a way around here, or at the very least, a caution was to be triggered soon. Meanwhile, for Chin, he's losing a touch bit of ground because of the swapping in front. If anything, this has stagnated the progression that was being made, with Newsom having someone to finally work with.
He's starting to go a little bit faster. Yeah, maybe not as helpful as she would have wanted in the form of Chris Fowler. Fowler's saving even more than Newsom, who said, I can't lose any more time behind you. But remember, Newsom is working onto lap magic number 33 to go. If she boxes after this lap, she is looking very comfortable on the fuel number.
Oh, and somebody on the apron all of a sudden. That is Ron Hacker in trouble.
Ron Hacker in the 21, slow rolling to pit lane. Crucially, Newsom stays out. At the very worst, she's looking at a 32-lap run to make it to the end from here.
She's made the green light on the gas. Now, does she push? Does she try and go as further as she can? That's the major question mark. Chin is still 8.5 seconds back right now at this time. With no draft to peel off of, here's what happened for Ron Hacker.
So through turn 2, up in the groove, a full line up as well. Straight into the wall. Another car finding out how tough the Indianapolis Motor Speedway can well and truly be. Does Newsom box this time? No, she extends one more lap. Magic fuel saving from Magic Alexis Newsom.
With no help the past few laps and Chin dropping back and Newsom picking up the tempo, I wouldn't be surprised to see it come in now. Especially with that extra fuel burn coming in 41 flat last time by, despite no draft.
It's swinging back in the favor of Newsom. 32 to go. Does she box this time? Draft from Kinsella pulling the 53 on the run into turn number 3. What a story this would be. It's not the first time Alexis Newsom would have emerged on the good side of a fuel mileage race. She boxes for the final time with 31 laps to go.
Just got down to the speed limit just in time as well. Now, needs it to stay green. But the big question too, how does it play out for Newsom long term when it comes to the timing?
One final part to execute, into the box and rolling off. Tidy on the entry, fuel being filled. 4 Firestone tires going on to the factory-backed number 53. 9.6 stationary, and Newsom is up and away for the final time today.
At the very least, Newsom, I think, is in a great spot for a podium. But now, give credit where it's due for Chin and Kraus. They've been lightning fast all day as well. Now they are within 10 laps of their window. Remember, the window coming in, 28 laps to up to 32 projected. Some have really saved tons and tons of gas, though, with the help of the draft, up to 35 laps today.
And remember, the number for Newsom means she can be a bit more aggressive this stint. She can push a little bit harder. Does not need as much help as she's had the last 60 or so laps, but she's got help from those in front of her. Ryan Otis, first car in line with one of the race first machines just in front of that. It's looking good for Alexis Newsom. It's closed as well between Josh Chin and Philip Kraus. Traffic playing a factor.
Plenty of traffic, in fact, building up a little bit, helping Kraus gain up for some time. Kraus, remember, was dropping back in quick. The tough thing is, Kraus needing to find a way to get clean air in that traffic as well to try and get around some of those cars. Lost a ton of time behind the lap cars.
This is all playing into Alexis Newsom's hands. Less than 30 to go in this second Triple Crown race. The momentum you build today will be carried all the way to the end of the season for the final Triple Crown race for the next double points event at Fontana.
Well, here they go.
Here they come, and both cars nice and tidy onto pit lane.
No speeding penalties. Now it's the matter of where they cycle. One of the quickest races at the Speedway in series history, looking for its first green flag to checkered race. And now it comes down to where they come out here and how does Newsom respond in terms of the potential defense.
Oh, Phil Kraus has slid through the box and has got to try and find his way into the correct spot. That has blown Phil Kraus's chances of victory. Joshua Chin already up and away, and Phil Kraus has done it to himself.
Wow. Just wow. You cannot do that. Kraus is already behind Van de Sant. That is huge.
Van de Sant still yet to come to pit road as well. One mistake has changed the complexion of this race. Chin, 7.6 seconds back from Alexis Newsom with 27 laps to go this time by.
Has to be a man on a mission because now Chin has also lost any potential help. Maxing out 224. It looks like right now what I'm seeing here is Chin's trying to pull the bit of the anchor down the straightaway with no drafting help. Get to Malechka to the third. Use Malechka to the third as the drafting swap draft partner to see what happens there.
It does look as though Phil Kraus, after winning 7 of the first 9 races in 2022, will watch on as someone else grabs the second Triple Crown race in this 2022 Lionheart IndyCar Series. 26 to go this time by Jason Brophy onto pit lane.
Chin has actually picked up the draft much quicker than expected, should say. Now off of a few cars and Alex Gouillard and company. But man, oh man, has this race had another change, and we go from what was double-digit contenders early to just 2 favorites. Newsom and Chin, 6 seconds the gap. The gap growing a bit this lap, 25 laps to go.
Where is Newsom in terms of the line? 2 cars in front, Brian Carey and Paul Jenkins, I believe, in front of the 2021 Lionheart Speedway Series champion. In a good spot in terms of fuel, in a good spot in terms of lap time, you'd have to think as well. It's reset the gap between Newsom and Chim back up to 6.5 and counting.
And growing because Newsom is really charging ahead, now can go full tilt, being inside the magic number and then some. Brian Carey seems to be a pretty helpful person right now with the lines he's been taking.
Hear the engine note around the track. It's a difficult time for a lot of these drivers knowing what's on the line. You've gotten this far. Now where can you position your car best? Let's grab a look again at that error in pit lane for Phil Krause that has changed the complexion of the battle for the lead. Sliding all the way through the box and then trying to get it lined up once again. Phil Krause, first major mistake that we've seen from him in 2022.
And it's likely the mistake that cost him the victory and has his worst finish of the season of 3rd. But still, that's the type of mistake you think back and say, I shouldn't have done that. That is a major mistake from a major veteran. In terms of the platform, should say.
No, sorry. I was just sending off some messages to the Team i5G camp to try and see how close it is for Newsom on fuel. What does she have to do in terms of hitting her number? It was only a couple of laps longer than what we think Josh Chin has got to do. So with 23 to go, coming to 22 at the line, Alexis Newsom is relying on Brandon Traino and Christian Steele to guide her to the end of this race, and the word from Brandon Traino, JP, is she is full push to the end of this race.
And that is huge. And that shows exactly the card Newsom was playing. Save the gas, as you were talking about, and as we were discussing in general. Save the gas, be able to push at the end of the run with a lighter race car. 3 laps the difference on them strategy-wise. Kinsella coming out just ahead of the race leader, Newsom looking to lap him.
Kinsella emerges in 9th position for the time being, although we are waiting for cars in front of him to come down and box potentially one more time. The only thing that changes the story of this race would be a caution. It looked similar in the iRacing Indianapolis 500 earlier this year during the month of May. Alexis Newsom, with the team around her, was building up for a victory on strategy. Cautions changed the game. Will we see that again today? Mike Grigney down to pit lane.
And Rigney, not the way Rigney wanted this race to go. You see a very slow pit exit, meanwhile, going on at the end of the racetrack.
It's not a pit exit.
That is a very slow Matt Houston.
Yeah, I saw at the back of the shot that I think Matt Houston had a bit of a bobble there. Just as I was saying, all that Newsom needs to do is hope that the caution doesn't come out. It's about as close as you want to get. JP, talk to us about this one.
Well, it wasn't necessarily a pit exit. It was more so a hit that navigated him there. Turn 1 has been a bugaboo for many. Short chute, slammed to the concrete part of the wall, and that's enough for mandatory damage repair, including a part coming off that car as well for Matt Houston. Houston, a very quiet day, not a good day for the 66.
What's looking like it would be a decent day for Matt Houston in that 66, at the very least getting some solid points on the board, but now very much sliding backwards in the field. Under 20 to go, 19 this time at the line. The gap has grown, it's 7.5. Van der Stant is hunting down Joshua Chin, albeit with a pit stop yet to make.
And that's the interesting part I'm finding out of all this is Chin's really losing ground. Lots and lots of it in oodles of bunches. Now it's the matter of, does anybody want to help out Chin here with this race? Remember, Molecular Third worked with Newsom last season in the Speedway Series.
What more do we have left in store for us here today? In Chapter 10 of 22 in this 2022 Lionheart IndyCar Series. 18 to go at the line. Van der Stant down to pit lane.
That's to be expected with that stop to make it to the end on gas, a lighter car. But the swap draft is being utilized by Moechka III, interestingly enough here. But it's not helping enough for Chin to close up. 7.5 seconds back. He's lost a second this run.
Cars looking dirty. Debris thrown up over them over the course of the previous 180 laps. 6.9 the gap for the race lead. Still battles going on. Matthias Kraus on course potentially for a good top 10 finish as Brian Beard and Andrew Marquez behind him. The only car that we think doesn't need a stop to get to the end is that 5 car. Brian Beard on for a top 5 finish.
But even then, it's a 7-lap difference now. Beard was on that cycle before, but that's changed over time. If anything, Beard is now in the hoping for a caution club with 9 cars in the lead lap here. But that lead is going down. This is likely going to be the ebbs and flows the rest of the way. Because now, it's the matter of Newsom needing the traffic to not play a factor. Newsom just scraped the wall in the short shoot in 3 and 4. Is that going to be a factor for the 53?
Does it slow her down? Bill Krause has lost a whole bunch of time. Now behind Chris Fowler in the number 20 machine. Jason Brophy trying to work with him in the private label Team Hype camp to tow him up through traffic. It's a good point. Mency as well would be expected to pit by that logic. Never trust the commentator's math. Justin Prince at least on hand to correct my mental slip-ups. Under 6 seconds the gap for the lead. Andrew Kinsella has closed on Alexander Van der Sant. Both cars have made their final stop onto pit lane. They're fighting then for overall position. Kinsella with fresher tires. Excuse me, other way around. Van der Sant with the fresher tires.
But Kinsella with the better run in the draft. And to quickly zip on by. How big is the difference going to be for the fresher tires, though? We've seen it be a somewhat differential mark. But more so, the timing of your track position has been the more critical part of the day.
Beard down to pit road. Marquez follows him in, so final stops for them underway. Bensi and Kraus continue to wait for a potential caution to come and change the game one more time. 38 cars took to the start of this HyperX Indianapolis 500-mile race. Only 26 are left running. Attrition, as with any race here at Indy, has played a mighty big part. Kinsella holds off Van der Sant one more time. Kinsella, though, is defending the inside.
Swanini also joining the fray in 20th position. So now Newsom is starting to drop back, starting to go back into save mode a little bit maybe, because the time is starting to get dropped back a bit. If anything, might also be looking for some clean air to get some good rotation here to try and keep the push ahead.
We are running out of time, though. 13 to go at the line. The gap still over 5 seconds. Chin is looking for tenths of a second every single lap. He doesn't have that advantage just yet.
And last time by the stripe, 3/10 picked up, but that's not going to be enough quite yet. It's going to be close, but it's not where he needs to be, and there's plenty of traffic to deal with. At least 4 different cars are between him and Newsom currently.
Seven cars left on the lead lap. 2 yet to come down to pit road for the final time today. Newsom content to ride for the time being. The gap stabilized at 5.2. Jason Brophy gets in front of AJ Musselman as he tries to recover his way up through the field from an end-of-line penalty to fighting for a top 10.
Recovery is a bit near contact. That's Musselman squeezed up nearly to the wall by Brophy. This is not what Kraus wants to see in his rearview mirror.
Matthias Kraus, on the other hand, is down on pit lane for the final time today. Plenty happening on track as we near the 10-lap to go margin. Brophy and Musselman fighting for 12th position, 5 odd seconds back from Joe Branch. Kraus will be working with Brophy to hold on to that position, especially when you look at the HyperX team standings with no Connor Harrington and no Adam Blocker racing today. Carey also down to pit road for the final time today.
I think Newsom's found the sweet spot. Not too close, not too far back of the draft, to be able to get some help on the straights, but also not too much arrow washing the corners. It's going to be a little bit more hairy, though, with that traffic coming out. And Matt Houston, who is on the bottom, and so there goes that strategy plan for a moment.
Houston's running slowly as he tries to get back down to the inside of the track. We'll let your race leader go. Gap back up to 6. So it comes and it goes. The swings and roundabouts of racing at Indianapolis. Under 25 miles to go. Newsom has to hold on for 10 more laps for this historic victory.
Would be huge for the Speedway Series champion from last season to pick up a huge Triple Crown victory here today in the HyperX Indianapolis 500-mile race. It's been that type of a day where strategy has reigned supreme, and it's been attrition building up for many over this long green flag run of 191 laps now complete.
Rhino just has lost a little bit of ground. Joshua Chin will clear on him. Might explain why the gap has grown very slightly. Last lap was a 43.317 for Rhino. Caleb Benzie will duck down to pit lane. Should emerge inside of the top 10. A good recovery after starting in 17th spot.
That means Van de Sant from the EOL as a result of the crash in qualifying. Now up to 4th once things cycle. Kinsella, give credit to round out the top 5, it looks like, possibly. Depending on where things play out here as the pit stop complete for Benzie and both cars pass on by the 29.
Just 4.7 seconds stationary for Caleb Benzie, indication that maybe no tires, fuel only for him. For Kinsella, running in no man's land for so much of this race, he might have been thinking, what if? So good points on the board. Number 41 machine. Otis will emerge 2 and a bit seconds back from Caleb Benzie. Let's see if old tires are going to be able to hang on. Otis already up to full racing speed, of course. Racing for the lead. Newsom still 6.2 clear. JP, she looks like she's comfortably holding on at this point in time.
At this point, just have to hope it keeps going like this. The point of no return here in Indianapolis, about 3 laps to go. That's got to be the mark where you can start taking some breaths. Just don't push up the hill like that again, please.
The algorithm that calculates risk and reward and whether it's worth it surely starts to swing in the direction of conservatism if you are leading the race. If you're Josh Chin, goes the other way. It starts to be ratcheted up even further, pushing for all your worth to close the 6-second gap that you've got. 6 laps to go. Joshua Chin needs a second per lap.
I don't know if he's going to get a second per lap at this point, as Newsom nearly knocks the wall down. Now this might be realistic. Newsom hits the apron. Now slides it down. This is not what Newsom needed to see. There's the 1 second.
It's bobbling, it's wavering. Alexis Newsom's resolve at the end of this race. Remember midway through 2021 when it seemed that she could not get out of her own head. Joining up with Team i5G has been a definite step upwards in terms of mental strength and the speed that we've seen from her. It's got to hold on for the next 5 laps. After a worrying 2.5 miles, still 5 laps left to go. They're fighting tooth and nail to stay inside of the top 10. Rhino gets past Joe Branch.
Otis has been one of those 2 drivers, remember, who is staying up towards that group. Major differences between him and Chris Fowler. Fowler back in 15th, Otis after ditching him, able to jump up and forward. But remember, Brophy's in the mix, Beard's in the mix, Musselman is in the mix for his second career top 10 as well.
Benzie is losing all sorts of ground right now. Tires not playing favorably for him. Malechka's all over the rear end in this battle for 6th on track after a drive-through penalty, or rather a penalty for speeding on pit lane. What a remarkable roller coaster ride for Malechka, who will look to the inside, not going to clear just yet. But I don't think that move is too far away from being stuck.
Coming up to the point of no return as well. What a fight on track to try and battle things out for position. to close things out here at Indianapolis Motor Speedway here in Speedway, Indiana.
This time by officially past the point of no return. Alexis Newsom has 3 laps left to go and a 6-second advantage as she looks to write herself into the history books here at the Brickyard.
Traffic being very cordial right now, just needs to hit the marks.
Through 2, no dramas this time by. Tony Showen emerges off of pit road after having to box in the final stages of this race. His teammate Malechka unable to get past Bensi just yet. Plenty of drama outside of the race lead. Newsom continues to run away at the front.
What a recovery from Malechka the third from a speeding penalty. Up to a top 6 possibly if he can get up to Bensi. 2 laps to go to decide it.
Time is winding down. Bit of lap traffic there for Newsom to work past. Doesn't seem to have held her up, affected her too much. Just 6 more corners lies between Alexis Newsom and a victory here in Speedway, Indiana. What a journey it's been for Alexis Newsom. What a roller coaster of a day it would have been as well. Green so far, committed to the strategy nice and early, and it's played out a treat for the 53.
What a day for Alexis Newsom, committed to the one stop less strategy from the get-go, executed it to perfection, have the race go to perfection. Final time around from the Brickyard, all Newsom needs to do is make 3 more corners to be able to win a HyperX Indy 500.
It's the first time in 10 years that the Lionheart IndyCar Series has visited the Brickyard and gone caution-free. This is what Newsom wanted during the month of May. A fuel strategy race that would take her into victory lane. It wasn't to be. She watched on as Christian Steele ripped the win away in a 1-lap shootout at the end. But here today, strategy has reigned supreme, and Alexis Newsom will win the 2022 HyperX Indianapolis 500 to seal just her 2nd career victory in the series. What a day and what a moment for the factory-backed number 53.
And I think it's fitting that Steele is the one on the pit box here to help guide Newsom to the strategy. The race went the exact way they needed it to go for their strategy to work, and Newsom played it near perfect. Had several heart-and-mouth moments, and already wants to go and quickly celebrate along the front straightaway.
When you join a team like i5G named after this historic race, the greatest spectacle in racing, there are expectations that come with the name. Winning at the Brickyard is chief amongst them, and Alexis Newsom has done it in spectacular fashion, winning the HyperX Indianapolis 500. 53 car burns it down in HyperX victory lane.
Of course, you don't do it on the bricks, but man, oh man, what a historic day for Lionheart as well.
Incredibly driven and incredibly patient was Alexis Newsom to wait for this winning moment in the Lionheart IndyCar Series. A double points race that went caution-free. It flew on by. It ended with Alexis Newsom in victory lane for the first time since Chicagoland in 2021. Let's run you down then through your Sim Race 24/7 race results, because for Alexis Newsom, big smiles for Joshua Chin, for Philip Kraus, what ifs on the tip of their tongue. Alexis Newsom clear by 6 seconds from Joshua Chin at the end of this race. Phil Kraus continues the role that at least has seen him finish on the podium in every single one of the races so far in 2022. Alexander Van der Sant, after crashing in qualifying, redeems himself with 31 positions gained to finish inside of the top 5. Andrew Kinsella rounds out the top 5. A good day for Powerslide Adrenaline as they regain some ground in the HyperX team standings. Caleb Bensi qualified down in 17th. was quietly confident, working his way forward to 6th. Another impressive showing from the team race first 29. Malechka in 7th after a speeding penalty, does well to recover. Ryan Otis, Joe Branch, and then Jason Brophy with a penalty at the start of this race, an end-of-line penalty to be served. Brophy works himself up 28 spots to get into the top 10. AJ Musselman in 11th, who showed some great race pace today. Missing out on the top 10, unfortunately. Brian Beard on strategy down in 12th. Matthias Kraus 13th. Andrew Marquez, Chris Fowler through the top 15. Michael O'Brien finishes this race in 16th spot with Paul Jenkins and Brian Carey behind him. Carey and Lanini, double-digit positions gained up into the top 20. Bradley Sexton right behind them. Mike Rigney down in 21st with Luis Gonzalez Nunez, Jason Galvin, and Alex Guyon all 2 laps down as well. 3 laps down is Tony Schowen in the number 31. While many of the cars with struggles here today, Matt Houston, Matt Taylor, Lionel Kalisto, Ron Hacker, Mitchell Riggs, and many, many more, all retiring somewhat unfortunately early from today's race. Caution-free across of 500 miles. What a race it was, and it leads us into our HyperX post-race show, because the Lionheart Racing Series is powered by HyperX, makers of premier gaming gear like the legendary ultra-comfortable Cloud line of gaming headsets. Whatever you play, however you play, HyperX knows we're all gamers. For more information on HyperX products, visit hyperx.com. And while we dive into post-race interviews, we're still waiting for Victory Lane to be a place to chat. But for now, we'll dive to 2nd spot in this race and Joshua Chin. Josh, you came in a bit early one time in the cycle to match up with your teammate. Worked out quite nicely for you two, working your way up to 2nd and 3rd at the end of this race.
Yeah, it was disappointing. Had a really good run at it. It's probably the best Indy I've had in 4 or 5 years since 2018. And just thought we had the shot, and it didn't quite work out. And then Phil missed the box, and that was kind of day done and over. And I underfueled by a gallon too, so that didn't help. And I just kind of had to maintain position. But even with all that, I don't think we were going to get up to Alexis. We had to get going sooner than we did. 2nd place is really nice to have. Best finish of the year, but man, it sucks. Really wanted that win.
Did you ever think about trying the fuel save? Did you ever expect us to go caution-free for 500 miles?
I knew the save was kind of possible, but I didn't think anyone would commit to it, and especially the way the cycle worked out, and with losing Adriano and Rob and Henry out of the pack early on, I figured it wasn't going to work out for Alexis, but she caught all the lap traffic she needed to in the places she did, and just ran a management race. And then the caution never came out, so that helped out a lot. I didn't expect that at all. I know there were a few on-track incidents, people getting mad at each other, so to come out of that with no caution was a big surprise for all of us, I think, especially at the 3 of us on track. We didn't think it was going to go caution-free, especially after about 50 laps.
Only your 7th start of the season. You missed 3 races, but you've had some good speed. 3rd and 4th consecutive, back-to-back Watkins Glen and then Phoenix. I mean, what are your aims for this season? Not competing for a championship, not fighting as part of the team championship either. What's your goal other than good finishes?
Just trying to get wins as much as possible and support Phil and getting the title. The guys and getting the overall team championship. Today was a big step in points. Trying to get. My goal is to try and get top 10 once drops and everything work out. I think I'm down like 3 races right now. So hopefully it'll work out pretty nice. Getting double points in a race for once has actually been a great change for me, because I think it's the first time I've scored in a double points race that wasn't more than like 30 points. So yeah, overall just try and help the guys get the championship and just have a good season. Go trophy hunting from here on out.
Congratulations on 2nd here today, Joshua Chin.
Thank you, guys.
And now we can dial ourselves up into HyperX Victory Lane, where Alexis Newsom is standing by. Alexis, talk to us about the emotions. You came close in May, but you finally got this victory, a signature victory at the Brickyard.
Yeah, I cannot believe it went green, honestly. I just kind of did the same thing we did in May and had the I5G guys helping us along with the factory back. And Yeah, I'm really glad that worked out. I'm shocked, kind of.
I mean, we know you like a fuel save. How likely, when you committed to this strategy, how much were you thinking this was realistic? How much were you waiting for an ill-timed caution to come and ruin the flow?
Oh, pretty much every lap from lap 60, I was waiting for something to ruin it. And after a certain point, I thought we were done because I lost so much time and lost the front two and couldn't stay behind him anymore. So I thought a caution would come out after that, but we were kind of stuck in the strategy, and well, it worked.
And now, 2 second-place finishes. You missed our race at Suzuka, but a win this season. What's it been like in your first full-time campaign in this Lionheart IndyCar Series?
Oh, lots of mistakes. I think I could be a lot higher if I just hadn't done so many stupid things. But you know, it's learn from stuff, and maybe next year will be a little better, or I can claw my way back up a little bit.
Still a long way to go. Double points. Alexis Newsom, a winner of the Lionheart HyperX Indianapolis 500. To the final step of the podium we go, and we're joined by the man in form, the man in vogue, Phil Kraus. Phil, unfortunately, it was a mistake in the pit cycle that cost you any chance of being able to fight maybe a little bit more for the win, but talk to us about the race after putting it on pole position.
Yeah, it was a pretty good race. Just didn't really end up falling our way because Rob got a speeding penalty on, I think it was the third cycle of stop, so we weren't able to drop Alexis there. I had to kind of work with Chin and drop back a little bit, so she got an extra run in our draft, so we weren't able to drop her really, and then the lap cars worked really well in her favor, and she was just able to get the fuel save done and able to pull it out. She did an amazing job to get that fuel save and win the race.
I mean, the run is over, Phil. You didn't finish inside the top 2 today. You only finished inside the top 3. I mean, halfway through this campaign.
Oh no, Arjuna.
I know. I mean, imagine the bad luck that you must have had. But I mean, overall, you must be looking at this first half of the season. We still got 1 race to go, yes, but 2 double points races in the books. You've now got very little pressure in some ways heading into the back half of the campaign.
Yeah, definitely. Obviously, finishing on the podium every race definitely helps with that, Arjuna, but yeah, there's a pretty comfortable margin in the points to work with. Definitely can afford to have a few blunders on my end, but still looking forward to the rest of the season. I think it's Motegi Road next, and ran there in Scops earlier today. That did not go well, so hopefully it'll go better in this car.
Oh, you did Scops earlier today?
Well, I did 15 meters of Scops.
For those that don't know, Scops is the premier V8 Supercars League, so Phil Kraus branching out. Unfortunately, well, 1 race didn't go so well. This race went rather well. Congratulations on the podium, Phil Kraus.
Cheers, Arjuna.
Phil Kraus diversifying. What a scary proposition that is. And Justin Prince, that will wrap up our post-race interviews. Let's look forward at the excitement that lies ahead. It's not Motegi. It is an M, though, so we'll give Phil Kraus a cookie for trying. But July 13th, a bit of a break now, a couple of weeks away before we go up and go again to close out the first half of the season. We head to the tricky and tight, many more words to describe this fantastic race course, the Canadian Tire Motorsports Park.
Yes, indeed. Mosport going to be very fun to battle along. We've seen plenty of great racing at that track in the history of the Lionheart IndyCar Series, especially when it comes to the mid-pack. I think it's going to be fun to see how drivers fare out here in Canada.
It's a tough race last year. What are we in for in 2022? You'll have to join us to find out live on RaceSpot TV or after the fact on ESTV. What a race it was, the second of our Triple Crown races in 2022, and a new winner in 2022, Alexis Newsom, finally breaking through after being on the second step of the podium a couple of times more than she would have wanted. Before we say goodbye, we'd like to thank those that have made all of this possible, starting with the title sponsor of the Lionheart IndyCar Series. You're passionate about sim racing, but it always feels a little flat compared to the feeling of driving a real race car. Now you can actually feel what it's like to drive a race car. Butt-kicker haptic hardware and software are easy to install and let you feel every bump in the track, slip of your tire, and engine redline. The tactile feedback is so accurate and realistic, you'll be driving faster and having more fun than ever before. The Lionheart Racing Series is powered by HyperX, makes their premier gaming gear like the legendary Ultra Comfortable Cloud line of gaming headsets. Whatever you play, however you play. HyperX knows we're all gamers. For more information on HyperX products, visit hyperx.com.
Next Level Racing is an industry-leading cockpit and motion simulator manufacturer devoted to creating the most immersive experience possible for the global sim racing community. Take your racing to the next level and visit www.nextlevelracing.com.
Moser Racing is revolutionizing sim racing with the development of industry-leading hardware and software products like their R9 direct drive wheelbase and GS steering wheel. Featuring zero-delay wireless technology and made from high-end materials, Moser Racing delivers the precision you need to reach victory lane.
And by Gomez Sim Industries, makers of high-end esports equipment and controls. Precision built using nothing but the best materials available today. Passion and handmade craftsmanship drive each made-to-order build, creating a driving experience like no other. Visit GomezSimIndustries.com.
And it's not just them, but so many more that make this all happen. To learn more about the Lionheart Racing Series, 3 competitions it puts on, or its partners, visit LionheartRacingSeries.com, where you can stay up to date with the latest news in the world of Lionheart. We will be back in a couple of weeks' time. It's time for drivers to digest what has just unfolded, where their season lies, with 2 of our double points races in the books. Still a long way to go in the championship road, but Phil Kraus is on a one-way ticket to the championship as it stands right now. Alexis Newsom, though, broke through today in dramatic fuel-saving fashion. We'll see you next time on RaceSpot TV, and on behalf of the entire team at RaceSpot, for my co-commentator and Justin Prince, my name is Arjuna Kankibati, saying congratulations to Alexis Newsom, the winner of the HyperX Indianapolis 500.